The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. But what happens when something defies every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation? The USS Enterprise-D had encountered countless anomalies in its exploration of the galaxy: spatial rifts, temporal distortions, beings of pure energy. Captain Jean-Luc Picard had learned to expect the unexpected. Yet nothing in Starfleet's protocols could have prepared him for the moment a Monarch materialized in his engineering section. "Captain, we're detecting a massive subspace rupture in engineering," Lieutenant Worf announced from tactical, his deep voice cutting through the ambient hum of the bridge. "Energy signature is off the scale, it's not matching any known phenomenon in our database." Picard rose from his command chair, instinctively tugging his uniform straight. On screen. "Mr. Data, analysis." The android's fingers flew across his console with inhuman precision. "The rupture appears to be collapsing inward, Captain. However, I am detecting a discrete object emerging from the distortion, metallic composition, approximately 2 meters in height, humanoid configuration." Data paused, his golden eyes widening fractionally. "Sir, the energy reading suggests technology decades beyond Federation capability." "All hands, red alert," Picard commanded. "Security team to engineering. Mr. Worf, you're with me." The turbolift descended with agonizing slowness. When the doors opened, Picard found Chief Engineer Geordi LaForge already backing away from a figure that dominated the engine room. Through his visor, LaForge could see energy patterns that made no logical sense, a fusion of technology and something else, something that registered on spectrums the Federation hadn't even named yet. The figure stood motionless amid the azure glow of the warp core, a vision of technological supremacy wrapped in emerald and silver armor. The metallic surface bore no seams, no obvious joints, yet moved with perfect fluidity as the armored head turned to regard the approaching Starfleet officers. A hooded cloak, somehow pristine despite traveling through subspace, hung from broad shoulders. Most striking was the mask, a smooth, emotionless faceplate with eye slits that glowed with cold intelligence. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets Starship Enterprise," Picard began, his voice carrying the practiced calm of decades of first contact situations. "You are aboard a vessel of exploration and..." Silence. The word cut through the air like a blade, the voice resonating with absolute authority. "Doom does not recognize your authority, Captain. Nor does Doom require an introduction to a vessel whose technology is quaint." Worf's hand moved instinctively to his phaser. The armored figure didn't even glance in his direction, yet the Klingon security chief felt his weapon heat suddenly in its holster, forcing him to release it before the thermal buildup could burn through his palm. "I advise against further aggressive action," the figure continued, taking a single step forward. Geordi's visor showed power levels spiking throughout the armor. Whatever this being was, it had already analyzed their weapons and neutralized them. "You will address Doom as Lord Doom, or Victor von Doom, sovereign ruler of Latveria, master of sciences both terrestrial and cosmic. Your sensors have no doubt informed you that Doom's technology exceeds your comprehension." Picard held up a hand, staying Worf's advance. The captain had negotiated with Romulans, reasoned with the Borg, and faced down Q himself. He recognized absolute conviction when he heard it. "We mean you no harm, Lord Doom. However, you've materialized aboard my ship without authorization. I must ask your intentions." For the first time, the masked figure seemed to truly see Picard. The glowing eyes studied the captain with an intensity that felt like being dissected. "Intentions?" Doom's gauntlet hand rose, energy crackling between the metal fingers. "Doom's intentions are none of your concern. Doom requires information, your star charts, your historical records, your technological specifications. Doom has been displaced. This is not Doom's universe." Data stepped forward, his lack of fear in the face of obvious danger purely logical. "Your conclusion is correct. Based on the subspace harmonics of your arrival, you have crossed not merely spatial boundaries but dimensional ones. You exist in what you might term an alternate reality. Obviously. Doom's tone carried disdain. Doom had already calculated 17-dimensional variances from the ambient energy signatures alone. What Doom requires is the means to return. To do so, Doom will need access to your primitive vessel's computational resources and raw materials. The armored figure gestured dismissively at the warp core. This matter-antimatter reactor is inefficient, but it will suffice as a power source once Doom has made the necessary modifications. I'm afraid I cannot permit unauthorized modifications to our warp core, Picard replied evenly. However, the Federation offers asylum and assistance to displaced beings. If you'll accompany me to the observation lounge, we can discuss. Doom does not discuss. Doom commands. The energy surrounding Doom's gauntlets intensified. However, Doom is not without reason. You offer assistance, Doom acknowledges this gesture. But understand, Captain, Doom bows to no law but his own. Doom will construct what Doom requires. What you choose to do with that reality is your concern. The engineering crew watched in stunned silence as the armored monarch simply stood there, waiting, as if the outcome of this confrontation had already been determined in his favor. In the quantum sensors buried in his armor systems, Victor Von Doom had already mapped every power conduit, every security protocol, every structural weakness of the Enterprise. He had assessed Captain Picard as a man of principles, useful, predictable, exploitable. And in the diplomatic calculations of Jean-Luc Picard's mind, a troubling realization crystallized: they hadn't found this displaced being. He had simply allowed himself to be found. The question wasn't whether they could contain him. The question was whether they should try. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. Worf's voice dropped to a growl. Captain, he is a security risk. Doom's head tilted fractionally toward the Klingon. Doom respects warriors. But know this, Klingon, in Doom's universe, Doom has humbled gods. What chance does a single warrior believe he possesses? The warp core hummed. The ship waited. And Victor Von Doom stood like a monument to absolute certainty in a universe built on cooperation and compromise. The collision had begun. The observation lounge had hosted countless diplomatic negotiations, treaties with Klingon, agreements with Romulans, even attempted communication with the Borg. Yet none of those encounters carried quite the same tension as watching Victor Von Doom examine the room with barely concealed contempt. He stood rather than sat, his armored form positioned to observe all entry points simultaneously, while Picard took his customary seat at the head of the conference table. Computer, establish a level 5 security field around this room, Picard ordered quietly. Authorization Picard Delta 5. Acknowledged. Doom's metallic fingers drummed once against his armored forearm. Your force field technology operates on a rotating phase variance. Ingenious for deterring conventional matter transmission. Useless against Doom's armor, which exists partially out of phase with normal spacetime as a defensive measure. But Doom appreciates the gesture, Captain. It shows you are not completely naive. Data, seated to Picard's right, cocked his head with genuine curiosity. Fascinating. By my calculations, maintaining a stable phase variance would require power generation equivalent to nothing in your Federation's current technological repertoire, Doom interrupted. Data. An artificial life form with a positronic brain. Remarkable craftsmanship, though Doom has constructed superior synthetic beings. Your creator, this Nunian Sung, showed promise. Had he possessed Doom's resources, he might have achieved true perfection rather than this approximation. For the first time in his existence, Data experienced something approaching offense. I assure you, I am quite functional. Functional, Doom repeated, almost amused. Yes. As is a hammer functional. But tell me, Data, can you feel the quantum fluctuations in subspace? Can you perceive the 11-dimensional structure of reality? No. You are a computational marvel shackled by your creator's limited vision. Counselor Deanna Troi, who had joined them in the observation lounge, felt waves of absolute certainty radiating from the armored figure. Not arrogance precisely, that implied doubt masked by bravado. This was something else entirely. Complete, unshakable conviction that his assessment of reality was objectively correct. Lord Doom, she began carefully, I sense you are far from your home. That must be disorienting. Doom does not become disoriented, Counselor. The mask turned toward her, and Troi suddenly felt as if her empathic abilities had struck a wall. Not emptiness, but rather something so dense with determination and intellect that her betazoid senses couldn't penetrate it. Doom has traversed time, conquered alternate dimensions, and negotiated with cosmic abstracts. This displacement is merely another variable to be solved. Picard leaned forward, fingers steepled. Then let us solve it together. You mentioned you are the sovereign ruler of a nation called Latveria. In the Federation, we have successfully united thousands of worlds under principles of cooperation and mutual benefit. Perhaps. Do not presume to lecture Doom on governance, Captain. The voice carried an edge now, genuine anger beneath the iron control. Doom has read your Federation's charter through your computer's wireless network. It took Doom 17 minutes to infiltrate your primary database. Your system security is laughable. Geordi LaForge, who had been monitoring his PADD, suddenly looked up in alarm. Captain, he's right. I'm detecting unauthorized access throughout our computer core. He's been downloading star charts, historical records, technical specifications. And Doom has discovered what manner of universe this is, Doom continued, ignoring the chief engineer's outburst. A democracy. How quaint. How inefficient. How utterly predictable that lesser minds would band together, mistaking collective mediocrity for strength. He turned fully toward Picard now, and the captain felt the weight of that masked gaze. Your Federation spans 8,000 light-years. 150 member worlds. Trillions of beings. And yet, you have achieved in 4 centuries what Doom accomplished in Latveria within 2 decades, peace, prosperity, technological advancement. The difference? Doom did so through vision and will, not endless committees and compromises. What you describe sounds like tyranny, Picard replied quietly. Call it what you will. Doom's people do not starve. They do not suffer invasion. They do not beg for protection from their leader, they trust in Doom's absolute capability. Can your Federation citizens say the same of their council? Doom gestured toward the viewport, where stars streaked past at warp speed. Your ship encounters hostile species routinely. Your prime directive watches civilizations die rather than interfere. Your democracy debates while threats multiply. Doom acts. Doom protects. Doom endures. Data's positronic brain processed the statement at quantum speed. You present a logical fallacy. Benevolent dictatorship requires the assumption that the dictator remains benevolent. Historical analysis across 17,000 civilizations suggests that absolute power correlates with eventual corruption in 93.7% of cases. Historical analysis, Doom repeated, and now there was something almost like respect in his tone. You think in patterns, android. Admirable. But you analyze past failures without accounting for the exceptional individual. Doom is not one of your failed dictators. Doom has been offered godhood and refused it, for gods are constrained by worship. Doom remains human, remains accountable only to Doom's own conscience and vision. Worf had remained silent throughout the exchange, but now his warrior instincts demanded voice. You speak of strength and vision. Yet you arrived on this ship powerless to return to your own universe. What kind of leader abandons his people? For the first time, Doom moved with something other than calculated deliberation. His gauntlet fist struck the conference table with enough force to crack the duranium surface, yet the blow was precisely calibrated, a demonstration of restrained power. Doom did not abandon Latveria. Doom was engaged in battle with those who would threaten his nation. The accursed Richards, he stopped, the armored chest plate rising and falling with what might have been emotion beneath the metal. It matters not. Doom will return. Doom always returns. Picard saw the opening and took it. Then let us help you. We have scientists, engineers, resources. Together, we might find a solution faster than. Together, Doom interrupted, his voice returning to its cold precision, is a word that assumes equality. There is no equality here, Captain. There is Doom, and there are those who may assist Doom if they prove competent. He turned toward the viewport, his cloak settling around him like a monarch's robes. However, Doom recognizes that cooperation may accelerate Doom's departure from this primitive universe. Therefore, Doom proposes an exchange. What kind of exchange? Troy asked, her empathic senses screaming warnings she couldn't quite articulate. Doom requires raw materials, duranium, transparent aluminum, dilithium crystals. Doom requires computational access to construct a dimensional bridge. In exchange, Doom will not seize control of your vessel, dismantle your technological infrastructure, or conquer your federation. Does that not seem equitable? The silence that followed was profound. Picard realized with cold clarity that Doom wasn't making a request. He was offering them the illusion of choice, cooperate willingly, or be forced to cooperate. The armored figure had already demonstrated he could bypass their security, neutralize their weapons, and access their most sensitive data. He could have simply taken what he needed. The fact that he was negotiating at all suggested something unexpected. Victor Von Doom, for all his proclaimed superiority, still valued something in the concept of consent. Perhaps even the great Doom recognized that ruling through fear alone had limitations. Or perhaps, Picard thought grimly, he simply found it more efficient this way. I'll need to consult with Starfleet Command, Picard began. You have 12 hours, Doom replied, already moving toward the door. The security field should have stopped him. Instead, it flickered and died, phase shifted into uselessness by technology decades beyond Federation understanding. Doom will remain in Cargo Bay 3, analyzing your primitive materials. Do not attempt to confine Doom. Do not attempt to deceive Doom. And do not waste Doom's time with your bureaucratic delays. 12 hours, Captain. Then Doom begins construction with or without your permission. The door slid open. Doom departed, leaving behind a fractured conference table and a crew that had just learned a terrible lesson. Some beings didn't ask for permission because they genuinely didn't need it. Data broke the silence first. Captain, I believe we have encountered what ancient Earth philosophy termed the unmovable object. No, Mr. Data, Picard replied quietly, already reaching for the comm panel to contact Admiral Nechayev. We've encountered something far more dangerous. We've encountered a man who believes he's always right. And thus far, we haven't proven him wrong. Admiral Alina Nechayev's face on the viewscreen displayed the kind of bureaucratic displeasure that had ended promising Starfleet careers. Let me be certain I understand this correctly, Captain. A self-proclaimed dictator has materialized on your ship, bypassed every security protocol we possess, and is now demanding resources while threatening to take them by force if refused. And your recommendation is that we negotiate? Picard stood in his ready room, hands clasped behind his back, choosing his words with diplomatic precision. Admiral, with respect, Lord Doom has demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our own by a considerable margin. He has already accessed our computer core without triggering a single alarm. Our weapons proved ineffective. Attempting to contain him by force would likely result in casualties and accomplish nothing. So we simply capitulate to extortion? Nechayev's expression hardened. Captain, the Federation does not negotiate with terrorists or dictators, regardless of their technological advantages. We have protocols for this situation. Protocols designed for warp-capable species within our own universe, Picard countered. Admiral, I've reviewed the data Mr. Data compiled from Doom's armor emissions. The technology isn't just advanced, it's fundamentally different. He's combining principles that shouldn't coexist according to our understanding of physics. If he's telling the truth about being a head of state in his own reality, we may be dealing with a legitimate diplomatic situation, albeit an unprecedented one. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting we grant him diplomatic recognition? Captain, the man is from another dimension. He has no legal standing in our universe. Neither did the Husnock until we encountered them. Or the Dowd. Or any number of beings we've granted provisional status pending formal evaluation. Picard moved closer to the view screen. Admiral, Victor Von Doom has made it clear he intends to return to his own universe. If we assist him in that goal, we resolve the situation peacefully. If we resist, we risk a confrontation we cannot win, and we potentially strand him here permanently. A new voice interrupted from off-screen. May I address the captain, Admiral? A figure moved into view, a Vulcan woman in Starfleet Science Blue, her commander's pips gleaming. I am Commander Tran, Starfleet Dimensional Sciences Division. I've been analyzing the subspace harmonics from Doom's arrival. Commander, Picard acknowledged. The energy signature suggests a 12.3% degradation in dimensional membrane integrity at the arrival coordinates, Tran explained with Vulcan precision. If Doom attempts to force open another dimensional breach without proper calibration, he could create a permanent rupture between our universes. The consequences would be catastrophic. Nechayev's expression shifted from anger to concern. Casualties? Potentially billions, Admiral. Possibly the unraveling of local spacetime itself. Tran's dark eyes met Picard's through the screen. However, if we cooperate with controlled parameters, we can ensure the dimensional bridge collapses cleanly behind him. Captain Picard, you must keep him from acting unilaterally. That, Picard said dryly, may prove challenging. Lord Doom does not strike me as a man accustomed to waiting for permission. Nechayev was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing Federation principles against practical reality. Very well, Captain. You may provide limited assistance under the following conditions. Doom remains under constant surveillance, he surrenders all weapons, and he submits to our security protocols. Furthermore, I'm dispatching the USS Sutherland to your coordinates. Captain Shelby will provide additional resources and, if necessary, tactical support. Picard suppressed a grimace. Elizabeth Shelby was competent but aggressive, precisely the wrong personality to deal with someone like Doom. Admiral, I'm not certain additional firepower will. Those are my orders, Captain. Nechayev out. The screen went dark. Picard stood alone in his ready room, contemplating the impossible task of convincing an absolute monarch to surrender weapons and submit to authority. Through the viewport, stars continued their steady passage, indifferent to the drama unfolding aboard the Enterprise. Cargo Bay 3 had been transformed. In 6 hours, Victor Von Doom had constructed what Geordi LaForge could only describe as organized chaos, except it wasn't chaos at all. Every component, every tool, every material sample had been arranged with mathematical precision. Doom stood at the center, his armored hands moving through holographic projections that floated in mid-air, technology that shouldn't exist interfacing seamlessly with Federation computer systems. Remarkable, data observed from the cargo bay entrance, his positronic brain recording every detail. You have created a hybrid interface between your dimensional technology and our computer architecture. The computational efficiency exceeds Starfleet specifications by a factor of 47. Doom's specifications exceed all specifications, the armored figure replied without looking up. Your dilithium crystal matrix is crude but functional. Doom has recalibrated the molecular structure to handle transdimensional energy loads. You may consider this an improvement. Your warp core efficiency will increase by 18% even after Doom's departure. Geordi stepped forward, his visor analyzing the modified crystals. You just restructured the lithium at the molecular level. That should take weeks in a laboratory with specialized equipment. It takes 17 minutes when one possesses Doom's understanding of quantum mechanics and access to precision manipulation fields. Doom finally turned to face them, his holographic displays freezing in place. However, Doom has encountered an obstacle. The dimensional coordinates of Doom's universe require a power surge beyond what your primitive antimatter reactor can generate. Doom requires either a stellar mass energy source or access to a stable wormhole. Data's head tilted thoughtfully. The Bajoran wormhole would provide sufficient energy, but it is 7 weeks away at maximum warp. Alternatively, there is a binary star system approximately 3 light-years from our current position. Unacceptable, Doom interrupted. Doom will not waste weeks traveling when a solution exists here. His gauntlet finger pointed at the deck beneath their feet. Your warp core contains sufficient antimatter reserves. Doom simply requires brief access to overload the containment fields in a controlled manner. The resultant energy cascade will power the dimensional bridge for precisely 4.3 seconds. More than adequate. Geordi's expression shifted from fascination to horror. You want to deliberately overload the warp core? That would destroy the Enterprise. Only if executed by incompetent hands, Doom replied dismissively. Doom's calculations account for every variable. The containment breach will be localized, controlled, and reversed before catastrophic failure occurs. Your crew will experience minor discomfort from temporal displacement, approximately 0.03 seconds of discontinuity. Acceptable losses. Acceptable losses. Geordi's voice rose. We're talking about 900 people's lives. And Doom is talking about billions in Latveria who depend on their leader's return. The masked face turned fully toward the chief engineer, and Geordi could see power building in the armor's gauntlets. Do not mistake Doom's willingness to negotiate for weakness, engineer. Doom could seize control of your engineering section within minutes. Doom could override your safety protocols with a thought. Doom offers you the courtesy of cooperation because Doom's honor demands it. But make no mistake, Doom will return home. The only question is whether your ship survives the process. The cargo bay door hissed open. Picard entered, flanked by Worf and a full security detail, phasers conspicuously holstered but hands ready. The captain's expression was carefully neutral as he approached. Lord Doom, I've just concluded discussions with Starfleet Command. They have agreed to provide limited assistance with your dimensional bridge, subject to certain conditions. Doom does not accept conditions. Nevertheless, they must be addressed. Picard moved closer, his diplomatic training overriding every survival instinct that screamed at him to maintain distance. First, you must surrender any weapons beyond your armor's defensive systems. Second, you will work under Starfleet supervision with our engineers. Third, any procedure that risks this ship or crew requires my explicit authorization. And fourth, Picard paused, knowing this would be the breaking point, you will submit to our security protocols, including a level 10 force field around your work area. The silence that followed felt like standing on the event horizon of a black hole, inevitable collapse merely a matter of time. Doom's armored form remained absolutely still, processing the demands with the cold calculation of a chess grandmaster presented with an opponent's gambit. Captain Picard, Doom finally spoke, his voice carrying a tone that might have been respect if not for the absolute certainty beneath it. You are either extraordinarily brave or catastrophically foolish. Doom has not yet determined which. I am neither, Lord Doom. I am simply a Starfleet captain attempting to resolve an impossible situation without bloodshed. Bloodshed, Doom repeated. Yes. Doom has spilled blood, of enemies, of allies, of innocents caught in cosmic conflicts beyond their comprehension. Doom has burned worlds and saved universes. And through it all, Doom has learned one fundamental truth: power respects only power, or the wisdom to know when power is outmatched. He gestured at the modified equipment surrounding them. Your Federation believes in laws, in democratic principles, in the consent of the governed. Noble. Naive. But perhaps, instructive. Doom extended his right gauntlet, palm up. In a shimmer of displaced air, weapons materialized, energy projectors, molecular disruptors, devices whose function Geordi couldn't even guess. They hovered above the metallic palm, suspended by invisible forces. Doom's weapons, Captain. Doom surrenders them as a gesture of good faith. Not because Doom fears your force fields or your security protocols, but because Doom recognizes you are attempting to protect your crew according to your principles. Doom can respect that, even if Doom does not share those principles. The weapons settled onto a cargo container with a heavy thunk. Worf immediately moved to secure them, his Klingon instincts screaming that this was somehow a trap. However, Doom continued, and Picard felt the inevitable qualification coming: Doom will not submit to observation like a laboratory specimen. Doom will work with your engineers as colleagues, not subordinates. Doom will explain Doom's procedures and accept input, but the final decisions rest with Doom. And if your Starfleet command attempts to seize Doom's technology, to replicate Doom's work, to turn Doom's genius into another weapon for your Federation's arsenal, the temperature in the cargo bay seemed to drop 10 degrees. Then Doom will demonstrate why dictators survive where democracies falter. Doom will show you what absolute conviction can accomplish when unshackled by committees and compromise. Picard met that masked gaze without flinching. We have no interest in your technology beyond ensuring it doesn't tear a hole in our universe. You have my word as a Starfleet captain, we will assist your return home, and your innovations remain yours. The word of a Starfleet captain, Doom mused. In Doom's universe, such words are worth less than the breath that carries them. But Doom senses in you, Captain Picard, something rare, genuine conviction matched by capability. Very well. Doom accepts your terms. Now leave Doom to work. Time wastes, and Latveria endures without its rightful ruler for too long. As they filed out of the cargo bay, Geordi activated the force field, not the level 10 containment Starfleet had demanded, but a level 5 monitoring field that would alert them to dimensional breaches without truly constraining Doom. It was a compromise, though neither side would acknowledge it as such. Captain, Worf rumbled once they were in the corridor, he is planning something. A warrior knows when another warrior prepares for battle. I know, Mr. Worf, Picard replied quietly. The question is whether that battle is against us, or against the universe itself for daring to strand him here. In Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom returned to his holographic displays, his fingers dancing through mathematical equations that would have taken data hours to solve. And deep within his armor's quantum processors, a secondary calculation ran, not for a dimensional bridge home, but for something far more interesting. Doom had lied. Not about returning to his universe, that remained the primary objective. But about his reasons for cooperating. The Federation intrigued him. A democracy spanning thousands of worlds, species united by ideals rather than conquest. It was absurd. It was inefficient. It was functioning. For the first time in decades, Victor Von Doom encountered a system that challenged his fundamental assumptions. And Victor Von Doom did not accept challenges. He conquered them. 12 hours until the USS Sutherland arrived with its aggressive captain and additional resources. 12 hours to complete the dimensional calculations, or to decide whether this universe might teach him something his own could not. Doom smiled beneath the mask. Either outcome would be educational. The USS Sutherland dropped out of warp with the precision of a bird of prey, its nacelles still glowing with residual plasma as it took up position 3,000 kilometers off the Enterprise's starboard bow. Captain Elizabeth Shelby wasted no time on pleasantries. Her face appeared on Picard's ready room view screen within minutes of arrival, her expression radiating the kind of aggressive confidence that had made her one of Starfleet's youngest captains. Captain Picard, I've been briefed on the situation. Starfleet Command wants a full tactical assessment before we proceed further. I'm sending over a security team and several specialists from our Advanced Technology Division. Picard set down the Resican flute he'd been holding, a momentary refuge from the mounting tension. Captain Shelby, I appreciate Starfleet's concern, but I must stress that Lord Doom has been cooperative within his own parameters. Additional security presence may be perceived as provocation. Cooperative? Shelby's eyebrow arched. Jean-Luc, the man threatened to seize control of your ship. He's a self-proclaimed dictator with technology we don't understand. Cooperative seems like an optimistic assessment. He surrendered his weapons. After demonstrating he didn't need them. Shelby leaned forward, her intensity palpable even through the view screen. Look, I respect your diplomatic approach. It served the Federation well. But sometimes you encounter beings who view diplomacy as weakness. From what I've read, Victor Von Doom is exactly that kind of threat. We need to be prepared for. A priority alert cut through the conversation. Data's voice came through the comm system with unusual urgency. Captain Picard to Cargo Bay 3 immediately. We have a situation. When Picard arrived, he found Data and Geordi standing outside the cargo bay, staring through the transparent aluminum viewport with expressions of pure bewilderment. Inside, the space had been transformed beyond recognition. What had been a simple storage area now resembled something from a fever dream of technology and impossible geometry. Holographic projections filled the air in three-dimensional matrices, each one displaying equations that seemed to fold in on themselves. Suspended in the center of the bay, held aloft by shimmering energy fields, was a ring-like structure approximately 4 meters in diameter. It pulsed with a sickly green light, and Geordi's visor could detect radiation signatures that shouldn't exist, wavelengths that existed between the known electromagnetic spectrum, impossible colors that registered on sensors but defied categorization. Victor Von Doom stood before his creation like a conductor before an orchestra, his armored hands moving through control interfaces that responded to thoughts as much as gestures. Around the ring, smaller devices floated in orbital patterns. Doombots, Data's tricorder identified, though calling them mere robots was like calling the Enterprise a robot. Each one possessed independent AI systems that rivaled Data's own complexity. He built all of this in 12 hours. Picard breathed. 11 hours and 43 minutes, to be precise, Data corrected. Captain, I have been monitoring his progress through our sensor grid. The construction methods are. Captain, he is manipulating matter at the quantum level without any visible technology. The Doombots appear to operate on principles that combine artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and something my sensors identify as thaumaturgic resonance. Thaumaturgic? Geordi turned to Data. You mean magic? I mean energy that behaves according to principles outside conventional physics. Whether one terms it magic or simply undiscovered science is a semantic distinction. Data's golden eyes never left the viewport. More concerning is the power draw. He has tapped into our warp core through a bypass I did not detect until it was already established. Current drain is 0.03% of our total output, negligible, but the fact that he accessed our power systems without triggering alarms suggests security vulnerabilities we were unaware existed. The cargo bay doors suddenly unsealed, and Doom's voice projected through the ship's comm system with crystal clarity. Captain Picard. Doom has completed the primary resonance framework. You may enter. Bring your android and your engineer. They may find the process illuminating. Picard exchanged glances with his officers. Worf, who had joined them, placed his hand on his phaser. Captain, I recommend. I know what you recommend, Mr. Worf. But we're past the point where phasers will make a difference. Picard squared his shoulders and entered the cargo bay, Data and Geordi following close behind. The energy in the room was palpable, making the hair on the back of Picard's neck stand on end. Up close, the dimensional ring revealed layers of complexity invisible from outside, circuits that bent through angles that hurt to look at, metals that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, glowing runes that Data's universal translator couldn't begin to decipher. Impressive, is it not? Doom gestured at his creation with undisguised pride. The dimensional dagger, Doom has named it. A blade to cut through the fabric of reality itself. Your Federation possesses the raw materials and energy, but not the vision to use them properly. Doom has corrected that oversight. Geordi's visor was working overtime, analyzing the structure from every angle. Lord Doom, these energy signatures, you're not just opening a portal between dimensions. You're creating a stable bridge that exists in multiple realities simultaneously. The math alone should be impossible. Should be impossible for you, perhaps. Doom's fingers danced across a holographic control panel. For Doom, it is merely complex. Your Dr. Brahms did interesting work on warp field dynamics. Doom has improved her theories by incorporating transdimensional resonance principles. When Doom returns home, your Enterprise will retain these improvements. Consider it payment for your cooperation. We don't require payment, Picard said carefully. We're assisting you because it's the right course of action. Right. Doom repeated the word as if tasting something unfamiliar. Captain, Doom has ruled for decades through strength, through fear when necessary, through respect when possible. Doom has made decisions that cost lives to save millions. Doom has sacrificed principles for survival and survived because Doom's principles are flexible enough to adapt. He turned from his creation to face Picard fully. Your Federation operates on the assumption that right exists objectively, that moral truth can be determined through debate and consensus. Tell me, Captain, when the Borg come, when they assimilate entire worlds while your Federation Council debates the proper response, do your victims find comfort in knowing their deaths were democratically sanctioned? The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Data, ever literal, responded first. The Borg represent a unique threat that has challenged Federation principles. However, our response has evolved. We have demonstrated that individuals can be recovered from the collective, that you can save one while millions die, Doom interrupted. Noble. Inefficient. In Doom's universe, when the Heralds of Galactus came to consume Earth, Doom did not convene a council. Doom did not debate ethics. Doom acted, and Earth survived. Could your Federation say the same? We don't know the Heralds of Galactus, Picard replied evenly, but we have faced existential threats. The difference is that we've done so without abandoning our principles. Without becoming the very tyranny we oppose. And how many died while you maintained those principles? Doom's question cut like a scalpel. Doom does not ask rhetorically. Doom has accessed your historical records. Wolf 359, 39 ships destroyed, 11,000 dead while your fleet attempted to negotiate with an enemy that does not negotiate. The Dominion War, your casualty reports are incomplete, but Doom estimates 800 billion sentient deaths across all factions. All because your Federation refused to strike preemptively when the threat became clear. Geordi bristled. We don't strike preemptively because that makes us the aggressors. We defend ourselves, but we don't start wars. No. You simply allow others to start them and pay the price in innocent lives. Doom turned back to his dimensional bridge, making subtle adjustments to the energy flow. Doom is not so naive. When Latveria faced threats, Doom eliminated them before they could strike. When neighboring nations plotted invasion, Doom's intelligence network detected their plans and Doom's military neutralized their capability. Latveria has not known war in 15 years. Can any Federation world claim the same? The question was damning because it was partially true. The Federation's commitment to peace, to diplomacy, to the Prime Directive, it came with a cost. Picard had seen that cost calculated in the faces of refugees, in the names on memorial walls, in the nightmares of officers who survived battles that should never have happened. But he had also seen what happened when beings with power decided they alone knew best. He had seen the Borg's perfect unity crush individuality. He had seen Q's omnipotence toy with lesser species for amusement. He had seen what the Federation might become if it abandoned its principles for expedience. Lord Doom, Picard said quietly, I don't doubt your methods have been effective for Latveria. But the Federation isn't a single nation with a single culture. We're thousands of worlds, billions of beings, countless perspectives and needs. No single individual, however brilliant, could possibly account for that complexity. Democracy isn't weakness, it's the acknowledgement that wisdom can come from many sources, that no one person has all the answers. For a long moment, Doom was silent. His masked face tilted slightly, as if Picard's words had struck some unexpected chord. Doom has conquered dimensions, Captain. Doom has held the power of gods. And yet, he gestured at the Enterprise around them, at the crew working in harmony, at the Federation that somehow functioned despite its inefficiencies. And yet your Federation endures. Your crew follows you not from fear but from respect. Your enemies become allies, your conflicts resolve through words more often than weapons. It is improbable. It's improbable that we're having this conversation, Data offered. The statistical likelihood of two universes developing intelligent life, achieving faster-than-light travel, and establishing contact through dimensional breach is approximately 1 in 10 to the 40th power. Yet here we are. Perhaps improbability is the universe's natural state. Doom actually laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor but containing something that might have been genuine amusement. The android philosophizes. Very well. Doom will consider your Federation's improbable survival while Doom completes the final calibrations. He turned to one of his Doombots, which immediately began interfacing with the dimensional ring. Captain, in approximately 6 hours, Doom will activate the dimensional dagger. The process will require overloading your warp core to 130% capacity for 4.3 seconds. Doom's calculations ensure safety, but Doom recommends evacuating non-essential personnel from the engineering section. Absolutely not, came a new voice from the cargo bay entrance. Captain Shelby strode in, flanked by her chief engineer and 2 security officers. We're not allowing you to overload anything until Starfleet specialists have reviewed your work. The risk is too great. Doom didn't turn to face her. And you are? Captain Elizabeth Shelby, USS Sutherland. I'm here to ensure this situation doesn't spiral into a disaster that threatens both our ships. Captain Shelby. Doom finally turned, and something in his posture shifted, from craftsman to predator. Doom has reviewed your service record through your ship's database. Aggressive. Competent. Ambitious. You remind Doom of many military commanders Doom has known. They all believed they could contain Doom through superior force or strategic positioning. They were all wrong. Shelby's hand moved toward her phaser. Is that a threat? It is a statement of fact. Doom took a single step toward her, and despite himself, one of Shelby's security officers raised his weapon. The Doombot that had been working on the dimensional ring suddenly rotated, its optical sensors locking onto the officer with predatory focus. Your weapon is a Type 2 phaser, standard Starfleet issue. Maximum setting, 3.2 megajoules. Doom's armor can absorb 17 times that energy and redirect it as a focused particle beam. Your security officer has approximately 0.8 seconds to live if he does not lower his weapon. Stand down, Shelby ordered, her voice tight. The officer complied, but the tension in the cargo bay had escalated from uncomfortable to potentially explosive. Picard stepped between them. Captain Shelby, if I might have a word outside. Shelby's jaw clenched, but she nodded curtly. As they moved toward the exit, Doom's voice followed them. 6 hours, Captain Picard. Doom suggests you resolve your internal disputes before then. Doom has no time for Starfleet politics. In the corridor outside, Shelby rounded on Picard. Jean-Luc, you're letting him dictate terms. We should be confining him, studying him, finding a way to neutralize his technology before he becomes a permanent threat. And how exactly do you propose we confine him? Picard's diplomatic restraint was fraying. He bypassed every security system we have. His technology exceeds ours by decades. The only reason we're having this conversation is because he's chosen to cooperate. Chosen is the operative word. He could choose differently at any moment. Shelby crossed her arms. Starfleet Command authorized me to take whatever measures necessary. Starfleet Command is 8 light-years away and not facing a being who could potentially destroy both our ships if provoked. Picard softened his tone. Elizabeth, I understand your concerns. I share them. But tactical aggression is precisely the wrong approach here. Doom respects strength, yes, but he also respects competence and logic. If we demonstrate that cooperation serves his interests better than conflict, we can guide this situation to a peaceful resolution. Shelby was quiet for a moment, her tactical mind clearly running scenarios. And if you're wrong? If he decides the Federation is a threat to be eliminated rather than a curiosity to be tolerated? Then we'll have lost nothing by attempting diplomacy first. Picard glanced back at the cargo bay, where through the viewport they could see Doom continuing his work, utterly unconcerned with their debate. But I don't believe it will come to that. Doom is arrogant, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But he's also rational. He came here accidentally, not as an invader. He wants to return home. We can facilitate that without sacrificing our principles or our safety. A chime from Shelby's comm badge interrupted them. Sutherland to Captain Shelby. We're detecting unusual subspace fluctuations near the Romulan neutral zone. Long-range sensors indicate a warbird has changed course and is heading toward our position. ETA, 4 hours, 30 minutes. Picard and Shelby locked eyes. The Romulans. Of course. A being with technology beyond Federation capabilities, stranded in Federation space, potentially vulnerable. The Tal Shiar would see opportunity where Starfleet saw complication. Red alert, Shelby ordered. Shields up, weapons online. Tactical assessment on my ready room display in 5 minutes. As she headed back to her ship, Picard tapped his comm badge. Picard to Riker. Number 1, we may have company soon. Romulan company. And I suspect they're not here for diplomatic discussions. Inside Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom's sensors had already detected the approaching warbird. A thin smile formed beneath the mask. The Romulans. In his universe, Doom had faced the Skrulls, the Kree, countless alien empires with their schemes and strategies. These Romulans, with their cloaking devices and their intelligence operations, believed they could manipulate Doom to their advantage. They would learn, as so many others had learned, that no one manipulated Doom. And if they persisted? Well, Doom's dimensional bridge required a final test of its particle acceleration systems. A cloaked warbird would provide an excellent target for calibration purposes. The game, as the humans said, was afoot. The Romulan warbird decloaked with theatrical precision exactly 300 kilometers off the Enterprise's port bow, close enough to demonstrate confidence, far enough to avoid being interpreted as an immediate attack. The vessel's green hull gleamed against the starfield, its predatory design somehow more menacing in stillness than in motion. On the Enterprise's bridge, every console was manned, every officer tense with the knowledge that Romulan encounters rarely ended with simple conversation. Hailing frequencies open, sir, Worf announced, his tone suggesting he'd much prefer combat to diplomacy. The viewscreen flickered, revealing a Romulan woman whose bearing suggested command more effectively than any uniform could. Her hair was swept back in the severe style favored by Tal Shiar operatives, and her eyes held the calculating coldness of someone who viewed compassion as a tactical weakness. Captain Picard. How fortuitous to encounter you in this region of space. I am Commander Sela of the warbird Kazara. Surely you remember me. Picard's expression remained neutral, though he felt Riker stiffen beside him. Sela, the half-Romulan daughter of an alternate timeline version of Tasha Yar, a woman whose schemes had nearly destabilized the Klingon Empire. Commander Sela. I was under the impression you were stationed near the Klingon border. This is quite far from your usual operational area. The Tal Shiar's operational area extends wherever the Empire's interests require attention. Sela's smile was predatory. And our interests have been piqued by unusual dimensional readings in this sector. Readings that suggest technology far beyond standard Federation capabilities. One might even say, impossible technology. The Federation conducts many scientific experiments, Picard replied carefully. I'm certain your sensors have detected nothing beyond routine research activities. Captain, please. We both know the Tal Shir's intelligence network is far more sophisticated than you give us credit for. Sela leaned forward, her smile widening. We know that a being of extraordinary capability materialized on your vessel approximately 18 hours ago. We know this being possesses technology that you cannot replicate or fully understand. And we know that he represents an opportunity that neither of our governments can afford to ignore. On the tactical display, Worf noted additional contacts. Captain, 2 more warbuds are decloaking. They're taking up flanking positions. 3 warbuds. The Romulans weren't here to observe, they were here to take. Picard's mind raced through diplomatic options, each one narrowing toward an inevitable confrontation. Commander Sela, I must protest this incursion into Federation space. You have no authority. Authority? Sela laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Captain, when has the Tal Shir ever concerned itself with authority? We concern ourselves with results. And the result we desire is very simple, you will turn over the being called Doom to Romulan custody. In exchange, we will overlook this regrettable breach of the Neutral Zone Treaty. Riker moved closer to Picard's chair, his voice low. Captain, they're positioning for a crossfire pattern. If we don't act soon. If we act, we start a shooting war that could escalate into full-scale conflict, Picard murmured back. Then, louder, Commander, I'm afraid your intelligence is incomplete. The individual in question is not under Federation custody. He is a sovereign entity who has chosen to accept our assistance temporarily. Even if I were inclined to negotiate his transfer, which I am not, I lack the authority to do so. How convenient. Sela's expression hardened. Then perhaps we should ask him directly. I'm quite certain the Romulan Empire can offer him far more than the Federation's naive idealism. We understand power, Captain Picard. We respect it. We don't try to constrain it with your pathetic prime directives and ethical committees. Before Picard could respond, the ship's lighting flickered. Every console on the bridge went dark for precisely 2 seconds before power returned. Data's fingers flew across his station. Captain, someone has accessed our communications array. The signal is being routed through. Victor Von Doom's face suddenly appeared on the view screen, displacing Sela's image entirely. The Romulan commander's outraged voice came through audio only. What is the meaning of this? Restore our transmission immediately. Doom does not require your permission to speak, Romulan. The masked visage filled the screen, and even through the technological medium, his presence dominated the bridge. You wish to negotiate with Doom? Then you will negotiate on Doom's terms, not your own. Picard stood. Lord Doom, this is not. Silent, Captain. Doom will handle this. The armored figure somehow conveyed dismissiveness despite the mask's immobility. Commander Sela of the Tal Shir. Doom has accessed your vessel's computer systems. Your cloaking technology is interesting, a phase-shifted graviton field that bends electromagnetic radiation around your hull. Crude, but effective against Federation sensors. Unfortunately for you, Doom's sensors operate on principles your empire has not yet discovered. Impossible, Sela's voice crackled through the speakers. Romulan cybersecurity is impenetrable to Federation technology, yes. Doom is not the Federation. On the screen, holographic displays materialized around Doom's image, showing technical specifications of the warbuds in real time, shield frequencies, weapons configurations, crew complements, even the personal files of the commanding officers. Doom knows your ships carry trilithium weapons in violation of interstellar treaties. Doom knows Commander Tomalak coordinates your movements from a fourth warbird still cloaked 18,000 kilometers to your stern. Doom knows that your intelligence suggests Doom possesses technology valuable enough to risk war with the Federation to acquire. The bridge was absolutely silent. Even Worf seemed stunned by the casual display of intelligence superiority. Picard slowly returned to his command chair, realizing that control of this situation had never been his, it had always been Doom's to claim whenever he chose. Your intelligence is correct, Doom continued. Doom does possess such technology. But understand this, Romulan, Doom does not share Doom's innovations with thieves who lurk in shadows. Doom does not negotiate with those who mistake cunning for intelligence, strategy for wisdom. If the Romulan Empire wishes to engage with Doom, it will do so with respect. It will do so as equals, or not at all. Seela's image suddenly reappeared, split screen with Doom's. Her face had gone pale with barely controlled rage. You dare. Doom dares anything Doom chooses, the armored figure interrupted. But Doom is not without reason. You came seeking technology. Very well. Doom offers you this. Leave now, report to your superiors that the being called Doom is beyond your capability to threaten or coerce, and Doom will consider future diplomatic contact once Doom has returned to his own universe and assessed whether this reality warrants further attention. Alternatively, the holographic displays around Doom shifted, now showing detailed schematics of the warbud's warp cores. Doom can demonstrate precisely why your artificial singularity containment fields are insufficient to withstand a cascading quantum disruption. Doom estimates your ships would survive approximately 47 seconds before catastrophic failure. Would you like a demonstration? The threat hung in space like a drawn blade. Picard found himself in the surreal position of hoping the Romulans would simply accept Doom's terms rather than test whether his threat was genuine. Because every instinct told him that Doom never bluffed. Commander Tomalak, Seela suddenly said, addressing the fourth warbird, tactical assessment. A new voice joined the channel, older, measured, belonging to a Romulan commander Picard knew all too well. Commander Seela, I'm analyzing the data he's transmitted. If these schematics are accurate, and preliminary scans suggest they are, then he has accessed systems that should be completely isolated from external intrusion. I cannot guarantee our ship's safety if he carries out his threat. Seela's jaw clenched so tightly Picard could hear her teeth grind through the audio feed. This isn't over, Doom. The Romulan Empire does not forget those who challenge its authority. We will meet again. Doom looks forward to it, came the dismissive reply. Perhaps by then you will have learned that authority means nothing without the power to enforce it. Now leave. Doom has work to complete, and your presence is tiresome. The warbuds held position for 10 more seconds, a final gesture of defiance, before cloaking one by one and departing. Sensors tracked their signatures moving back toward the neutral zone at high warp. Only when they were gone did Doom's image fade from the screen, replaced by the standard starfield view. Picard let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Mr. Worf, confirm they've departed the sector. Confirmed, sir. All 4 warbuds have crossed into the neutral zone and are continuing toward Romulan space. Captain, data said from Ops, Lord Doom has terminated his connection to our communications array. However, I am detecting that he left behind several modifications to our sensor grid. We can now detect cloaked vessels with 94% accuracy. Riker shook his head slowly. He just gave us the ability to see through Romulan cloaking devices. That's a tactical advantage that could change the balance of power in the entire sector. Perhaps that was his intent, Picard mused. A demonstration. To the Romulans, to us, to anyone monitoring this encounter. Victor Von Doom is not a piece on anyone's game board, he is a player in his own right. The turbolift doors opened, and Captain Shelby stepped onto the bridge, her expression a mixture of shock and grudging respect. I monitored the exchange from my ship. That was either the most brilliant piece of tactical diplomacy I've ever witnessed, or the most dangerous provocation. Knowing Doom, Picard replied quietly, it was probably both. In Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom returned his attention to the dimensional dagger as if the Romulan encounter had been nothing more than a minor distraction. The Doombots continued their work, making microscopic adjustments to the transdimensional resonance coils while Doom himself reviewed the final calculations. But a small portion of his considerable intellect remained focused on what he'd just learned. The Romulans were cunning, ruthless, willing to risk war for technological advantage. In Doom's universe, such beings would be enemies or subjects, there was no middle ground. Yet here, in this Federation universe, they were simply another faction in an elaborate dance of power and diplomacy. The Federation didn't conquer them or eliminate them as threats. Instead, they maintained uneasy truces, negotiated treaties, even occasionally cooperated when mutual interests aligned. Inefficient. Irrational. And yet, functional. Doom's fingers paused over a holographic control panel. For the first time since arriving in this universe, a thought occurred to him that he had not entertained in decades. What if his way was not the only way? What if democracy, with all its inefficiencies and compromises, possessed strengths that dictatorship could never achieve? The thought lasted precisely 1.7 seconds before Doom dismissed it. No. Democracy was weakness institutionalized, mediocrity elevated, genius constrained. The Federation survived not because of its principles but despite them, a cosmic accident that would inevitably correct itself when faced with a truly existential threat. Still, the thought had occurred. And Victor Von Doom did not dismiss data simply because it contradicted his hypotheses. He filed the observation away, categorized it, and continued his work. 4 hours until the dimensional dagger would be ready. 4 hours until Doom could return home and resume his rightful position as Latveria's sovereign ruler. But in those 4 hours, Doom would observe. He would analyze. And if this Federation proved to possess something of value, some insight, some principle that could benefit Latveria, then Doom would take it. Not through theft, but through understanding. Because Doom was many things, dictator, genius, sorcerer, conqueror. But Doom was not a fool. And only fools ignored lessons simply because they came from unexpected sources. A Doombot approached, its optical sensors glowing with inquiry. Master, the Romulan encounter has delayed our schedule by approximately 17 minutes. Shall I increase power allocation to compensate? No, Doom replied, surprising even himself. Maintain current parameters. The delay is acceptable. Doom wishes to observe these people a while longer before departing. They may yet prove interesting. The Doombot processed this illogical decision for 0.3 seconds before accepting it. If Doom wished to extend his stay, then logic dictated there was a reason, even if that reason was not immediately apparent. On the bridge, Picard stared at the stars and wondered what Victor Von Doom was thinking in his cargo bay laboratory. The encounter with the Romulans had revealed something troubling. Doom could have solved that situation violently. He had the power, the capability, the tactical advantage. Instead, he had chosen diplomacy backed by overwhelming force. Not because he lacked the will to fight, but because fighting served no purpose that negotiation couldn't achieve more efficiently. It was the decision of a leader, not a tyrant. And that realization made Victor Von Doom far more dangerous than any weapon he might construct. Because a man with both power and wisdom was nearly impossible to defeat. The Klingon bird of prey decloaked directly in front of the Enterprise with the kind of aggressive showmanship that only warriors seeking glory would attempt. Its forward disruptors were powered but not locked on target, a stance that communicated readiness without immediate hostility. Worf's growl of recognition rumbled across the bridge before his tactical readout even updated. Captain, it's the IKS PAG. General Martok's vessel. Picard's eyebrows rose. Martok, decorated war hero, personal friend of Worf, and one of the few Klingon commanders whose honor was matched only by his tactical brilliance. What would bring the general this far into Federation space without prior notice? The view screen activated without waiting for hailing frequencies to be established. Martok's weathered face filled the display, his one good eye gleaming with barely contained excitement. The vertical scar running through his empty eye socket somehow made his smile more ferocious rather than diminished. Captain Picard. Your Federation news channels have been broadcasting fascinating rumors. A warrior from another reality who threatened the Romulans into retreat without firing a shot. A being who possesses both technological might and personal honor. Such tales demand investigation. General Martok, Picard replied carefully, already sensing where this was heading. I assure you, the situation has been somewhat exaggerated by. Do not insult me with diplomatic evasions, Captain. Martok leaned forward, his massive frame filling the screen. The Romulans do not retreat from mere threats. They calculate, they scheme, they withdraw only when convinced that battle offers no victory. I would meet this warrior. I would measure his worth. And if the legends prove true, the Klingon's smile widened, then perhaps the Empire will extend an invitation that your Federation cannot match. Riker moved closer to Picard's chair. Captain, we can't just parade doom around to every faction that shows up asking. The Klingon does not ask, Martok interrupted, his universal translator catching Riker's words. The Klingon offers challenge. And if this doom possesses even half the honor the reports suggest, he will accept. Unless, Martok's tone shifted to something between mockery and challenge, unless the Federation has already caged him like one of your specimens, stripping away his warrior's pride in exchange for your protection. It was calculated provocation, designed to force Picard's hand. Refuse, and risk insulting Klingon honor. Accept, and potentially unleash an encounter between two beings whose concept of conflict resolution involved significantly more violence than Starfleet protocols permitted. Before Picard could formulate a response that wouldn't trigger an interstellar incident, the cargo bay channel opened on its own. Doom's voice carried through the bridge speakers with unmistakable interest. A Klingon warrior challenges Doom? How refreshing. Captain Picard, inform this general that Doom accepts his challenge. Doom will meet him in your cargo bay in 1 hour. Come armed, Klingon. Come with your finest warriors. And learn what it means to face a man who has conquered gods. The channel cut off. Martok's laughter boomed through the view screen. Excellent. A warrior with confidence. Captain, Doom and I shall have much to discuss. Martok out. The screen went dark. Picard closed his eyes briefly, counting to 10 in ancient Klingon, a language whose structure was oddly soothing when one needed to maintain diplomatic composure in the face of utter chaos. Well, Riker said into the silence, this should be interesting. Interesting, is not the word I would choose, number 1. Picard tapped his comm badge. Picard to Dr. Crusher. Please have medical teams standing by near Cargo Bay 3. I suspect we may need them. General Martok materialized in Transporter Room 3 with 4 warriors flanking him, each one a veteran of the Dominion War, their bat'leths worn from use, their armor bearing the scars of honorable combat. Worf greeted them with the formal Klingon salute, fist to chest, and Martok returned it with genuine warmth. Worf, son of Moke. I heard you had returned to Starfleet. The Empire's loss is the Federation's gain, though I still believe you waste your talents on these explorers. Martok clapped Worf on the shoulder hard enough to stagger a human. But today is not about politics. Today, we meet a warrior worthy of song. Come, let us see if this Doom lives up to his reputation. They strode through the corridors of the Enterprise like a force of nature, drawing nervous glances from crew members who knew enough about Klingon to recognize when they were excited rather than angry, though to the uninitiated, the distinction was nearly invisible. When they reached Cargo Bay 3, they found Captain Picard, Data, and Geordi already waiting outside. General, Picard began, I must ask that this encounter remain non-lethal. We cannot afford. Captain, you know nothing of Klingon honor if you think we would dishonor a first meeting with assassination attempts. Martok's tone was almost gentle, though the way one might explain basic concepts to a child. We come to measure this Doom, to understand his strength, his honor, his worthiness. If he proves disappointing, we leave and speak no more of it. But if he proves worthy, the Klingons' eye gleamed, then the Empire will offer him what your Federation cannot, a place among warriors, where strength is celebrated rather than constrained. The cargo bay doors opened. Inside, the dimensional dagger hummed with barely contained power, its ring pulsing with energies that made the Klingon pause despite themselves. But their attention quickly shifted to the figure standing before his creation, Victor von Doom, arms crossed, armored form radiating patient authority. General Martok, Doom's voice carried clearly despite the energy fluctuations. Doom has accessed Klingon historical records. A warrior culture that values honor above survival, glory above longevity, death in battle above peaceful endings. Fascinating. Irrational. But internally consistent. Martok approached slowly, his warriors fanning out instinctively into combat positions. Not aggressive, simply ready. And you, Doom. A dictator who rules through strength. A conqueror who bends nations to his will. Yet the Romulans retreated from your words alone. That suggests a warrior who understands that the greatest victories require no bloodshed. Doom understands that bloodshed is a tool, not an objective. The masked head tilted slightly. Doom has fought when necessary, negotiated when advantageous, and ruled always with Latveria's interests paramount. What Doom does not understand is why warriors would seek death rather than victory. Dead warriors cannot protect their people. Ah, but you misunderstand. Martok's smile returned. We do not seek death, we simply do not fear it. A warrior who fears death fights cautiously, defensively. A warrior who accepts death fights with full commitment, full strength. That is why Klingon often triumph against superior numbers or technology. We are willing to pay the price that others hesitate to spend. Doom processed this, his analytical mind cataloging the tactical implications. Interesting. Psychological warfare through demonstrated fearlessness. It would be effective against enemies who calculate victory through casualty ratios. However, Doom's gauntlet suddenly flared with energy. What happens when you face an enemy who can inflict casualties at a rate that makes fearlessness irrelevant? When one warrior can destroy 1,000 before they close to melee range. The Klingon warriors tensed, hands moving to their weapons. Martok held up one massive hand, staying them. Then that warrior has earned respect through capability. Tell me, Doom, in your universe, have you faced such enemies? Doom has faced the Silver Surfer, Herald of Galactus the World Eater. Doom has battled the Beyonder, a cosmic entity of near-infinite power. Doom has stood against gods and demons and beings that exist beyond conventional reality. The energy in Doom's gauntlets faded, a deliberate de-escalation. And Doom has survived because Doom understands that raw power without strategy is merely destruction. Doom combines might with intellect, force with planning. That is why Doom prevails where others perish. Martok's warriors exchanged glances. These were not the words of a mere fighter or a simple tyrant. This was a being who had genuinely faced cosmic-level threats and lived to speak of them. You remind me of someone, Martok said slowly. Emperor Kallus the Unforgettable, founder of our empire. He too combined strength with wisdom, victory with honor. He understood that a true warrior fights not for glory alone, but for something greater, for his people, for his principles, for his legacy. The general took another step closer, now within arm's reach of Doom. So I ask you, Doom, what do you fight for? The question hung in the air like a blade suspended between combat and conversation. Even Picard, watching from near the entrance, found himself curious about the answer. Doom fights for Latveria, came the immediate response. For its people, its sovereignty, its right to exist free from the machinations of greater powers. In Doom's universe, nations are pawns in games played by beings of immense capability, heroes and villains who reshape reality according to their whims. Latveria survives because Doom possesses the strength to defend it and the will to pay any price for its protection. That is honor, Martok said simply. That is what we Klingon respect above all else, willingness to sacrifice everything for one's people. Your methods may differ from ours, your government certainly does, but your core principle. He extended his arm in the Klingon warrior's greeting. You are a warrior, Doom. Whatever else you may be, that truth is undeniable. For a long moment, Doom stared at the extended arm. In his universe, he would have dismissed such gestures as meaningless posturing. But here, in this strange reality where he had seen democracies function and warriors seek honor over conquest, the gesture carried weight. Doom clasped Martok's forearm in the traditional Klingon greeting. The general's grip was crushing, a test of strength disguised as courtesy. Doom's armored gauntlet matched the pressure exactly, neither yielding nor dominating. An equilibrium of power. General Martok, Doom acknowledges your warrior's spirit. However, Doom must clarify, Doom is not seeking alliances or recruitment. Doom intends to return to his own universe within hours. Your Empire's offer, while intriguing, comes too late. Perhaps, Martok released the grip and stepped back, or perhaps this is merely the first meeting of many. The universe is vast, Doom. Dimensions are infinite. Who knows what the future holds? But know this, if you ever require allies who understand strength, who value honor, who do not fear conflict when conflict serves justice, he gestured to his warriors, who raised their batleths in salute. The Klingon Empire remembers its friends. And we do not forget warriors worthy of respect. One of Martok's warriors, a younger Klingon with ritual scars across his brow, stepped forward. General, if I may speak. Martok nodded permission. Doom, your armor. Those symbols etched into the metal, they are not merely decorative. They are formulaic, mathematical expressions rendered in physical form. You combine technology and, he paused, searching for words, and something else. Something our sensors cannot fully identify. Doom's masked gaze fixed on the young warrior. You have training in engineering? I studied at the Klingon Science Institute before joining the Defense Force. My name is Koloth, son of Khan. And I have never seen technology that operates on such principles. You do not simply build machines, you inscribe them with purpose at a fundamental level. Finally, Doom's tone carried what might have been approval, someone with the intellect to recognize the difference. Yes, Koloth. Doom's technology transcends mere mechanical function. In Doom's universe, Doom studied both science and sorcery, mastering disciplines that others insisted were incompatible. Doom proved them wrong. These symbols channel energies that exist outside conventional physics, what your Federation might dismiss as impossible, what your warriors might call mystical, what Doom simply terms advanced principles awaiting discovery. Data, who had been silently recording everything, spoke up. You are suggesting that magic and science are not separate disciplines but rather different approaches to the same fundamental forces? Doom is not suggesting, android. Doom is stating fact. Your Arthur C. Clarke wrote that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Doom has achieved that threshold. And in doing so, Doom has discovered that magic, properly understood, is simply science that operates through channels your current instruments cannot measure. Martok laughed, a booming sound that echoed through the cargo bay. Koloth, you see. This is why I brought you. While these Starfleet officers analyze and debate, a Klingon engineer recognizes brilliance when he sees it. He turned back to Doom. Before you depart this universe, Doom, would you grant us a demonstration? Not of combat, we have already established your capability. But of this combined technology you have created. Show us something that will give us stories to tell in the halls of QNOS. Doom considered the request. Demonstrations were beneath him. But strategic relationships, even those that existed across dimensional barriers, had value. And these Klingon, unlike the Romulans or even the Federation, recognized strength without fearing it, understood power without seeking to constrain it. Very well. Doom turned to his dimensional dagger, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Doom will show you why gods fear Doom's name. The ring began to spin, slowly at first, then accelerating to speeds that should have torn it apart from centrifugal force. Energy built within the structure, not just electromagnetic radiation but something deeper, something that registered on spiritual levels as much as physical. The Klingon watched with the fascination of warriors recognizing superior weaponry, while the Starfleet officers monitored their tricorders with growing alarm. "Captain," Geordi's voice was tight with concern, "the energy buildup is exceeding any scale we have measurements for. If he loses control." "Doom never loses control," came the dismissive reply. The ring reached critical velocity, and suddenly the space within it tore open, not gradually, not with the gentle shimmer of a transporter, but with the violence of reality itself being stabbed through. Through the opening, they could see something. Another place. Another universe. Glimpses of a world where magic and science truly coexisted, where beings of impossible power fought battles that reshaped continents. And standing in that other universe, visible through the dimensional window, was another version of Doom, or perhaps Doom's castle in Latveria, its towers stretching toward alien skies, its defenses humming with power that made the Enterprise's weapons seem like primitive spears. "My universe," Doom said quietly. "My home. My kingdom. And soon, Doom shall return to it." The window collapsed as suddenly as it had opened, the ring spinning down to stillness. But the afterimage remained in everyone's minds, proof that Victor Von Doom had told them the truth. He was not merely a displaced being seeking help. He was a power unto himself, temporarily stranded but never truly trapped. Martok's single eye was wide with something approaching awe. "By Kalis. You truly have conquered gods. Conquered. Bargained with. Occasionally allied with when interests aligned." Doom's tone was matter-of-fact. In Doom's universe, power exists on scales you cannot imagine. And yet Doom endures, protects Latveria, and ensures that his people never become pawns in others' games. That is what true strength accomplishes, General Martok. Not domination for its own sake, but protection of what one values most. The Klingon warrior nodded slowly, understanding passing between two beings who, despite vast differences in method and philosophy, recognized kindred spirits. "Then may your journey home be swift, Doom. And may your enemies know fear at your return." "They always do, General. They always do." As Martok and his warriors departed, Picard remained behind, studying Doom with renewed concern. The demonstration had revealed something troubling. This wasn't a man playing at power or exaggerating his capabilities. Victor Von Doom was exactly what he claimed to be, a sovereign ruler who had genuinely faced cosmic-level threats and survived through a combination of genius, ruthlessness, and unshakable will. Which raised a question that Picard had been avoiding. When Doom returned to his universe, what lessons would he take with him? Would he return convinced that democracy was weakness? Or would something in this encounter plant seeds of doubt in that absolute certainty? Picard suspected even Doom didn't know the answer yet. The dimensional dagger hummed with near-completion energy, its systems running through final diagnostic cycles while Victor Von Doom made microscopic adjustments to the transdimensional resonance coils. 2 hours remained before the device would be ready for activation. 2 hours until Doom could return home and resume his rightful place as Latveria's sovereign protector. 2 hours until he would leave this strange universe behind, having learned more than he cared to admit about alternatives he had spent decades dismissing as impossible. The cargo bay doors opened without warning. No chime, no request for entry, no gradual transition. One moment they were sealed, the next they simply weren't, as if the concept of closed had been politely asked to reconsider its position. And through the opening walked a being who made even Doom's considerable presence seem somehow diminished. He appeared human at first glance, tall, lean, dressed in an immaculate suit that seemed simultaneously contemporary and timeless. But his eyes gave him away. Those eyes held the accumulated weight of eons, the casual arrogance of omnipotence, and the playful malice of a child with infinite power and finite patience. Well, 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 the being said, his voice carrying theatrical amusement. Victor von Doom. The monarch of Latveria. Conqueror of dimensions. Holder of doctorates in physics, mysticism, robotics, and, if I'm reading this correctly, comparative literature. That last one's new to me. Tell me, Doom, did Paradise Lost give you pointers on the whole, better to reign in hell, philosophy? Doom's armored form went absolutely still, a predator recognizing another predator. His sensors analyzed the newcomer in nanoseconds, humanoid configuration, but the energy readings were impossible. Not merely powerful, they existed outside measurable scales entirely. The being registered simultaneously as matter, energy, and something that conventional physics refused to acknowledge. You are not human, Doom stated flatly. Oh, how perceptive. No wonder they call you a genius. The being snapped his fingers, and suddenly he was sitting cross-legged in mid-air, floating at Doom's eye level. I'm Q, omnipotent, omniscient, and perpetually disappointed by lesser beings' inability to entertain me. Usually I torment Picard and his merry band of explorers, but you, he pointed at Doom with genuine interest, you're something different. A dictator from another universe who treats starship captains like inconvenient bureaucrats and Romulan commanders like door-to-door salesmen. Fascinating. On the bridge, alarms erupted across every station. Data's fingers flew across his console. Captain, an entity has appeared in Cargo Bay 3. Energy signature matches. Q, Picard said, already moving toward the turbolift. His tone carried the weariness of someone who had dealt with cosmic beings' idea of entertainment far too many times. Red alert. All senior staff to Cargo Bay 3. And someone contact Dr. Crusher, we may need tranquilizers. For Q or for Doom? Riker asked. Both, number one. Definitely both. In the cargo bay, Doom had not moved. His tactical analysis was complete, the being called Q possessed power that exceeded anything in Doom's direct experience, possibly even surpassing the Beyonder or the Celestials. Fighting would be futile. Fleeing impossible. Which left only one option, treat this as a negotiation. Q, Doom said carefully. Doom has encountered cosmic entities before. They typically arrive with demands, tests, or threats disguised as games. Which category encompasses your visit? Oh, I like you already. Q clapped his hands delightedly. No begging, no awestruck worship, no tedious philosophy lectures about the nature of power. Just straight to business. See, Picard. This is how you handle omnipotence. He gestured, and Captain Picard suddenly appeared in the cargo bay, mid-stride from where he'd been heading toward the turbolift. Picard stumbled, regained his balance, and fixed Q with a look of profound annoyance. Q, I don't have time for your games today. We have a genuine diplomatic situation requiring. Requiring what? Your usual blend of Shakespeare quotes and Earl Grey tea. Q waved dismissively. Please, Jean-Luc. I'm here because this situation is actually interesting for once. A dictator meets democracy, tyranny encounters idealism, and nobody's bothered to ask the most important question. Which is? Doom asked, his analytical mind already working through scenarios. Q's expression shifted, becoming momentarily serious, a transformation that was somehow more disturbing than his playful mockery. Which of you is right? Silence filled the cargo bay. Even the dimensional dagger's hum seemed to quiet, as if reality itself paused to consider the question. Right? Picard's voice carried dangerous calm. Q, governance isn't a matter of right and wrong. It's about serving people's needs, respecting their autonomy, and... Ah, there it is. The Federation lecture. Q materialized a director's chair and a bowl of popcorn. But here's the thing, Picard, Doom's people don't starve. They don't suffer invasion. They live in peace and prosperity under his absolute rule. Meanwhile, your Federation's ideals have cost how many lives? Wolf 359. The Dominion War. All those colonies you couldn't protect because the Prime Directive said you mustn't interfere. The Prime Directive exists to prevent, Picard began. To prevent exactly what Doom does every day, imposing your will on others because you've decided you know better. Q took a handful of popcorn, munching thoughtfully. See, that's what makes this fascinating. You both want to help people. You both use power to achieve that goal. The only difference is Doom admits he's making choices for others, while you hide behind committee votes and ethical frameworks. Doom's masked gaze shifted between Q and Picard. The entity makes a valid point, Captain. Your Federation claims moral superiority, yet enforces its will through Starfleet vessels and economic pressure. The only difference between Doom's rule and your democracy is that Doom's subjects know who makes their decisions. No, Picard said firmly. The difference is that my subjects, as you call them, can vote me out. They can disagree, protest, even rebel without fear of execution. Your people cannot say the same. Doom's people do not wish to rebel because Doom serves their interests. The armored figure took a step toward Picard. When has a Latverian citizen starved under Doom's rule? When has Doom failed to protect his nation from external threats? When has Doom placed his personal interests above Latveria's welfare? And when your interests diverge? Picard challenged. When protecting Latveria requires sacrificing innocents in other nations? When your genius leads you to decisions that benefit your rule but harm your people? Who stops you, Doom? Who provides the check on your power? Doom's conscience. Doom's intelligence. Doom's commitment to yourself. Picard's voice rose, passion breaking through diplomatic control. You answer only to yourself, which means when you err, and all leaders err eventually, there is no mechanism for correction. Absolute power doesn't just corrupt, Lord Doom. It eliminates the feedback necessary for wise governance. Q laughed, actually applauding. Wonderful. Now we're getting somewhere. But let's make this interesting, shall we? He snapped his fingers. The cargo bay dissolved. Doom and Picard stood together on a planet's surface, but not any world either of them recognized. The sky burned with twin suns, casting crimson light across a landscape of crystalline structures that might have been buildings or perhaps living organisms. In the distance, two massive armies faced each other across a valley, weapons raised, hatred palpable even from kilometers away. What is this? Picard demanded. A thought experiment made manifest, Q replied, his voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. This is Krios 4, a world caught in civil war. The northern faction believes in democratic governance but lacks the strength to defeat the southern dictatorship. The South is ruled by a brilliant but ruthless tyrant who has brought prosperity to her people through conquest and oppression. Both sides have weapons capable of rendering this planet uninhabitable. Both sides are seconds from using them. Another snap, and suddenly Doom and Picard held tablets displaying comprehensive information about Krios 4, its history, resources, cultural complexities, and the intricate web of grievances that had led to this moment. You have 60 seconds to prevent planetary annihilation, Q continued cheerfully. Picard, you may use your Federation's principles, diplomacy, mediation, appeals to common values. Doom, you may use your methods, force, technology, absolute authority. Choose your approach. Save the planet. Or fail, and watch 8 billion beings perish. Your time starts, now. Picard immediately accessed his tablet, scanning for diplomatic options, looking for common ground between the factions. His mind raced through negotiation strategies, seeking the thread that might unite these people. Doom did not look at the tablet. Instead, his armor sensors conducted a comprehensive scan of the planet's infrastructure, weapons systems, communication networks, and power grids. In 17 seconds, he had mapped every critical system on Krios 4. Doom has a solution, he announced. As do I, Picard said simultaneously. Oh, this is good. Q materialized between them, still holding his popcorn. 43 seconds remain. Gentlemen, present your cases. Picard spoke first, urgency sharpening his words. Both factions are motivated by genuine grievances. The North fought for autonomy after decades of Southern economic exploitation. The South unified through force but created stability and prosperity. Neither side is purely evil. We create a mediated settlement, autonomous regions under a unified planetary council, economic reparations paid gradually, cultural preservation guaranteed, weapons decommissioned under neutral oversight. Lovely speech, Q said. Doom. Doom neutralizes both armies' weapons using electromagnetic pulse technology. Simultaneously, Doom's Doombots secure all military installations. Doom then presents both leaders with a choice. Accept Doom's interim governance for precisely 10 years, during which Doom will rebuild infrastructure, establish fair resource distribution, and create governmental institutions capable of preventing future conflict, or watch their planet destroy itself in the next 39 seconds. Q's eyes gleamed. Picard's solution requires both sides to trust each other after decades of bloodshed. Doom's solution requires them to trust a foreign dictator to willingly relinquish power after 10 years. Neither option is perfect. Choose now, 17 seconds. Picard's jaw clenched. I choose diplomacy. These people deserve to determine their own fate, even if the process is difficult. Doom chooses results. These people deserve to survive. Their self-determination is worthless if they're dead. 10 seconds. 5. 0. The armies fired. Weapons of devastating power streaked across the valley. Time seemed to slow as Picard watched helplessly, his diplomatic solution requiring weeks to implement while Doom arrived in seconds. And then the weapons simply stopped. Frozen in mid-air by invisible forces, their destructive potential held in stasis by power that made the planet's technology seem like stone tools by comparison. Q snapped his fingers, and they were back in the Enterprise's cargo bay. The dimensional dagger hummed unchanged, as if no time had passed, which, given Q's nature, was probably accurate. Well, that was illuminating. Q settled back into his floating chair. Picard's solution was morally superior but practically useless. Doom's solution was effective but required trusting a dictator's promise to abdicate. Both of you failed to prevent the attack, which means both approaches were inadequate. You're testing us, Doom said, his voice carrying an edge of anger beneath its usual control. Making us choose between ideals and survival. No, I'm making you confront what you've both been avoiding, Q replied, his tone losing its playfulness entirely. Picard, your Federation principles are beautiful, and they work wonderfully when you have time, resources, and enemies willing to be reasonable. But sometimes, speed is survival. Sometimes, waiting for democratic consensus means watching innocents die. And Doom, he turned to the armored figure, your efficiency is admirable. Your results speak for themselves. But power without accountability is a time bomb. Sooner or later, every dictator faces a crisis where their genius isn't enough, their judgment fails, and there's no system in place to correct the error before catastrophe. Picard and Doom stood in silence, each processing Q's words. The omnipotent being stood, his chair vanishing into nothingness. You're both intelligent beings, Q continued. Surely you can see that the truth isn't binary. Democracy isn't always wisdom, and dictatorship isn't always tyranny. The question isn't which system is right, it's what each can learn from the other. He looked at Doom. What if your absolute authority was tempered by genuine input from those you rule? Not democracy precisely, but accountability, advisors who could challenge your decisions, systems that could identify your blind spots. Then he turned to Picard. And what if your endless deliberations were balanced by the understanding that sometimes, decisive action saves lives that committee meetings would lose? That principles are worthless if you're too rigid to adapt them to reality. Q, Picard said quietly, why are you really here? The omnipotent being smiled, but this time, it carried something other than mockery. Because, Jean-Luc, I've been testing humanity for years, trying to determine if your species has potential beyond your primitive origins. And then this walking contradiction appears, he gestured at Doom, from another universe, challenging everything you believe, and you don't destroy him or imprison him. You negotiate. You learn. You demonstrate exactly the kind of growth I've been watching for. Q moved toward the cargo bay exit, then paused. Doom, your dimensional dagger will work. In approximately 90 minutes, you'll tear through reality and return home. But before you go, ask yourself this, what if Latveria could be even greater than it is? What if your genius combined with genuine accountability could create something that survives beyond your lifetime? The omnipotent being vanished with a flash of light, leaving behind only the faint smell of ozone and the echo of his words. Picard and Doom stood alone in the cargo bay, the dimensional dagger humming between them like a meditation on the conversation they just witnessed. He manipulates, Doom said finally. Creates scenarios designed to produce specific conclusions. Yes, Picard agreed. But that doesn't make his points invalid. Lord Doom, I cannot, will not, endorse your methods. But Q was right about one thing, neither of our approaches is perfect. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between absolute authority and democratic consensus. Doom does not compromise Doom's principles based on the manipulations of cosmic entities. But even as he spoke the words, Doom's analytical mind was already processing the scenario Q had forced them to experience. Both approaches had failed. Both contained wisdom and both contained fatal flaws. For the first time in decades, Victor von Doom genuinely reconsidered a foundational assumption, that his way was the only way. The thought was deeply uncomfortable. It challenged everything Doom had built his rule upon. And yet, Doom did not survive by ignoring evidence. Doom survived by adapting to truth, however inconvenient that truth might be. Captain Picard, Doom said slowly, when Doom returns to Latveria, Doom will consider establishing an advisory council. Not to override Doom's authority, Doom will not dilute the decisive leadership that has kept Latveria safe. But perhaps even Doom's genius benefits from alternative perspectives. Picard's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. That would be significant progress, Lord Doom. Do not mistake this for capitulation to your Federation's ideology, Doom warned. Doom remains convinced that absolute authority, wielded properly, provides optimal governance. But Doom also recognizes that even optimal systems can be refined. If Doom's rule can be improved without sacrificing its effectiveness, then Doom's duty to Latveria demands that improvement. It wasn't democracy. It wasn't even close. But it was movement, a crack in absolute certainty that might, over time, widen into something resembling accountability. And you, Captain? Doom asked. Will Q's demonstration cause you to question whether your Federation's commitment to process over results costs lives unnecessarily? Picard was quiet for a long moment. I already question that, Lord Doom. Every captain does, whenever we enforce the Prime Directive knowing that intervention could save lives. The difference is that we accept those doubts as necessary, they keep us from becoming tyrants ourselves. But, he paused, choosing words carefully, perhaps we could move faster in true emergencies. Perhaps democratic principles can coexist with decisive action when speed is genuinely survival. Neither man fully agreed with the other. Neither had abandoned their fundamental beliefs. But Q's intervention had accomplished something unexpected, it had introduced doubt where previously there had been only certainty. And doubt, properly applied, was the first step toward wisdom. 90 minutes, Captain, Doom said, returning his attention to the dimensional dagger. Then Doom returns home, and your Federation can resume its exploration without Doom's disruptive presence. Somehow, Picard replied with the hint of a smile, I suspect you'll continue disrupting things in your own universe, Lord Doom. Always, Captain. Always. The Enterprise's sensors detected them 37 minutes before they arrived, a signature so distinct, so impossibly unified, that every officer who saw the readings felt a primal chill of recognition. Data's hands froze over his console for precisely 0.4 seconds, an eternity for a positronic brain, before he spoke the words that every Starfleet officer dreaded. Captain. Borg. Red alert klaxons shrieked through the ship. Picard rose from his command chair, his face draining of color despite decades of command experience. He had faced the Borg before, had been assimilated by them, transformed into Locutus, forced to facilitate the massacre at Wolf 359. The nightmares still came sometimes, visions of thousands dying while his voice, twisted by the collective, proclaimed that resistance was futile. How many? His voice remained steady through sheer force of will. 1 cube, Captain. Bearing 147 Mark III. Current velocity, warp 9.2. Data's fingers danced across his console. They have altered course to intercept us. ETA, 36 minutes, 15 seconds. Riker moved to Picard's side, his voice low. They're coming for Doom. Of course they are. Picard's jaw clenched. We've been broadcasting his technological signatures across subspace for nearly a day. Energy readings that exceed Federation capabilities, dimensional technology, a fusion of science and something the Borg sensors can't fully categorize. He represents exactly the kind of distinctiveness they exist to assimilate. Worf's growl rumbled across the bridge. Captain, we should evacuate Doom immediately. Get him off the Enterprise before. Before what, Mr. Worf? Before the Borg follow him to whatever vessel we transfer him to. Before they scan his dimensional bridge and determine that technology is worth assimilating regardless of who possesses it. Picard shook his head. No. We're committed now. The question is whether we can get him home before they arrive. 36 minutes, Data supplied. Lord Doom estimated 90 minutes until his dimensional bridge would be ready. We are approximately 54 minutes short of that deadline. Picard tapped his comm badge. Picard to Doom. We have a situation. In Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom had already detected the Borg's approach through his armor's advanced sensors. His analysis was complete before Picard's communication arrived. 1 cube, approximately 3,000 drones, adaptive shielding, weapons capable of cutting through the Enterprise's defenses in minutes. In his own universe, Doom had faced the Annihilation Wave, the Skrull Empire, even Galactus himself. Each encounter had taught him the same fundamental lesson: some enemies could not be reasoned with or frightened into retreat. The Borg were such an enemy. Doom is aware, Captain. His hands moved across holographic controls, accelerating the dimensional dagger's calibration sequence. Doom is advancing the activation timeline. However, safely collapsing dimensional barriers requires precise calculations. Rushing the process risks catastrophic failure, potentially tearing a permanent rift between universes. How long do you need? 48 minutes. Minimum. Picard's voice carried the weight of command decisions that promised no good outcomes. Then we have 12 minutes to devise a strategy that keeps you alive long enough to complete the work. Recommendations? Doom's laugh was bitter. Run, Captain. Take your ship to maximum warp and hope the Borg choose to pursue Doom rather than assimilate your crew. It is the logical choice. We don't abandon people to the Borg, Lord Doom. Even arrogant dictators from alternate universes. Picard's tone shifted, becoming the voice of a man who had survived the collective once and refused to let them claim anyone else. We have 48 minutes. We'll buy you that time or die trying. The channel closed. Doom stood motionless for 3.2 seconds, processing this illogical decision. The Federation had no obligation to protect him. Picard's crew faced assimilation or death defending a being who had threatened to seize their ship, who represented philosophies antithetical to their values, who would leave their universe without looking back. And yet they would fight for him anyway. For the first time since arriving in this universe, Victor Von Doom felt something he had not experienced in decades, uncertainty about his own worldview. In Latveria, such sacrifice would come from fear or duty or the expectation of reward. Here, it came from principle, a principle that said all beings deserved protection, regardless of their politics or personality. It was inefficient. It was irrational. It was noble. Doom's gauntlet fists clenched. Very well, Captain. If your Federation insists on this foolish sacrifice, then Doom will ensure it is not wasted. Doom's Doombots will coordinate with your tactical systems. Doom will provide technological advantages that may give your primitive vessel a chance against the collective. But understand this, if Doom must choose between completing the dimensional bridge and saving your crew, Doom will choose Latveria. Doom always chooses Latveria. I wouldn't expect anything else, Lord Doom, came Picard's reply. Now let's see if your genius is as impressive as advertised. The Borg cube dropped out of warp with the inevitability of death itself. It was massive, over 3 kilometers per edge, its surface a chaotic maze of technology that had been assimilated from thousands of species across dozens of sectors. Conduits pulsed with sickly green light. Sensor arrays swept across the Enterprise and the Sutherland with predatory focus. And then the voice, that terrible, emotionless voice that spoke as one being with thousands of mouths. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. Captain Shelby reports the Sutherland is ready for combat, Sir, Worf announced. All weapons armed, shields at maximum. Picard stared at the cube on the view screen, remembering the feeling of his individuality being stripped away, of becoming part of something vast and terrible and utterly without mercy. Mr. Worf, target their shield emitters. Continuous rotating phaser frequencies. Keep them adapting. Aye, Captain. Mr. Data, coordinate with Lord Doom's Doombots. If his technology can give us an edge. Captain, Data interrupted, his golden eyes widening fractionally. Lord Doom is transmitting something to the Borg cube. It appears to be a message. On the view screen, Doom's armored visage suddenly replaced the image of the cube. His voice, amplified through the Enterprise's communication systems, carried across open channels for both Starfleet vessels and the Borg to hear. Borg Collective. This is Victor Von Doom, Monarch of Latveria, Master of Sciences both terrestrial and cosmic. You have designated Doom as possessing technological distinctiveness worth of assimilation. Doom acknowledges this assessment as accurate. However, Doom presents you with a choice, a concept Doom suspects you have not encountered in some time. The Borg's response was immediate. Choice is irrelevant. You will be assimilated. Will Doom? The armored figure's tone carried dangerous amusement. Doom has analyzed your collective consciousness. You are 3,000 individual minds subjugated to a single purpose, stripped of autonomy, reduced to components in a vast machine. Impressive efficiency. Absolute horror. And fundamentally flawed. Picard leaned forward. What is he doing? I believe, Data said slowly, he is attempting to negotiate with the Borg. Doom does not negotiate with lesser beings, Doom's voice continued. Doom states facts. Fact 1, Doom's technology operates on principles your collective has never encountered, a fusion of quantum mechanics, dimensional physics, and forces you term impossible. Attempting to assimilate Doom will require adaptation cycles your drones are unprepared to execute. Fact 2, Doom has faced hive-minded enemies before. Doom has defeated them. Fact 3, and here his tone shifted, becoming something colder than the void between stars, Doom is willing to demonstrate precisely why assimilation is inadvisable. But Doom offers you an alternative. The Borg cube's weapons began powering up, energy signatures building toward lethal discharge. On the Enterprise, shields hummed at maximum capacity, buying seconds at best. "You seek technological distinctiveness," Doom continued, his words racing against the Borg's attack sequence. "Doom will provide it. Not through assimilation, but through transaction. Doom will upload into your collective precisely 17 technological innovations, each one beyond your current capabilities, each one requiring no adaptation to integrate into your systems. In exchange, you will withdraw and allow Doom to complete his dimensional bridge. This benefits the collective more than assimilating Doom would, as attempting assimilation will result in Doom's defensive systems destroying your cube and eliminating the opportunity entirely." Silence. For exactly 8.3 seconds, the Borg made no response. Their weapons remained charged but did not fire. Their cube held position but did not advance. "Then, your offer is being analyzed. Stand by." Riker turned to Picard, his expression caught between hope and disbelief. "Captain, did Doom just make the Borg hesitate?" "He made them calculate," Picard replied quietly. "The Borg always choose the path of maximum assimilation efficiency. If Doom can convince them that cooperation yields better results than combat." Data's console chimed. "Captain, I am detecting data transmission from Cargo Bay 3 to the Borg cube. The content is, it is beyond my ability to fully analyze. But it appears to contain architectural specifications for technology operating on principles I cannot classify." On the view screen, Doom's image remained impassive. But inside his armor, Victor Von Doom was engaged in the most dangerous gambit of his life. He was feeding the Borg real technology, innovations in power generation, shield harmonics, and sensor resolution that would genuinely enhance their capabilities. But each innovation came wrapped in code that Doom had carefully constructed, logic traps, computational loops, subroutines that would subtly redirect the collective's attention away from Doom and toward other targets in other sectors. It was manipulation on a scale that would take the Borg months to detect and years to fully purge. Doom was not giving them gifts, he was infecting them with carefully crafted distractions disguised as advancements. "Analysis complete," the Borg voice announced. "Your technological distinctiveness is acceptable. However, biological distinctiveness remains. You will surrender yourself for physical assimilation. Resistance is futile, yes, Doom has heard your slogan." The armored figure's hands moved across his controls with blinding speed. "However, Doom has a counter-proposal. Doom's biological distinctiveness is irrelevant, Doom's consciousness exists partially digitized within Doom's armor. Assimilating Doom's physical form gains you nothing while losing the technological cooperation Doom has offered. But if you insist on testing Doom's defenses..." The dimensional dagger suddenly flared to life, its ring spinning at impossible speeds. Energy signatures that made the Enterprise's warp core seem like a candle next to a sun began building within the structure. The Borg's sensors immediately registered the threat. This wasn't just dimensional technology. It was a weapon that could destabilize local spacetime. "Warning," the Borg voice carried something that might have been their equivalent of concern. "Dimensional breach detected. Cascade failure probable. Recommend immediate withdrawal to safe distance." Ah, so the collective does possess survival instinct after all. Doom's fingers never stopped their dance across holographic controls. "Excellent. Then we understand each other. Doom has provided you with valuable technology. Doom will complete his dimensional bridge and depart this universe, never to return. And the Borg collective will have gained 17 innovations without risking a single drone. This is efficient. This serves your purpose. This is the logical choice." Another pause. Longer this time, 12 full seconds while 3,000 minds processed the calculation and reached consensus. "Acceptable. However, if your technology proves insufficient or deceptive, we will adapt. We will return. We will assimilate all distinctiveness associated with your dimensional signature." Doom would expect nothing less. Fortunately for both of us, Doom's technology is never insufficient. The transmission ended. The Borg cube remained motionless for 17 more seconds. Then, without ceremony or farewell, it turned and warped away, not toward Federation space, but toward the Gamma Quadrant, where Doom's carefully planted code had suggested other targets of equal or greater technological value awaited assimilation. On the Enterprise's bridge, the crew slowly released breaths they hadn't realized they'd been holding. Worf checked his tactical display 3 times before accepting that the Borg had actually left. "Captain," Shelby's voice came through the comm, "did Doom just negotiate with the Borg? Did he just con the Borg collective?" "He gave them what they wanted," Picard said slowly, while ensuring what they wanted wouldn't actually benefit them. A strategy worthy of the Romulans, executed with technological superiority the Borg themselves might envy. Whatever else Victor Von Doom may be, he is not a man to underestimate. Data's console chimed again. "Captain, Lord Doom is requesting permission to speak with you privately in Cargo Bay 3. He estimates 32 minutes until dimensional bridge activation." Picard stood, straightening his uniform. "Tell him I'm on my way." He paused at the turbolift, looking back at his bridge crew. "And Mr. Data? Begin analyzing everything Doom transmitted to the Borg. If he can teach us even a fraction of what he showed them, we may have just taken a significant step forward in defending against future Borg encounters." "Aye, Captain. Though I must note that preliminary analysis suggests the technology operates on principles that may take years to fully understand." "Then we'd better get started." The turbolift doors closed. In Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom stood before his nearly complete dimensional bridge, his armored form reflected in its gleaming surface. When Picard entered, Doom spoke without turning. "You came to thank Doom for saving your ship. Or perhaps to condemn Doom for giving technology to the Borg. Which is it, Captain?" "Neither," Picard said quietly. "I came to ask what you gave them. And what you didn't tell them." Finally, Doom turned. Perceptive. Doom gave the Borg exactly what Doom claimed, 17 genuine technological innovations. However, each innovation came embedded with code designed to subtly redirect their priorities, to suggest targets in distant sectors, to make them forget about Doom and this Enterprise and the Federation entirely. For at least several months, the Borg will be too busy integrating Doom's gifts to threaten your space. You weaponized information itself. Doom weaponizes everything, Captain. It is what leaders must do to protect their people. The masked head tilted. But yes, Doom also ensured the Borg gained real advancements. Doom does not lie about the quality of Doom's work, to do so would be to diminish Doom's reputation. The technology will make them more efficient, more dangerous. But by the time they realize what else Doom planted in their systems, Doom will be long gone, and your Federation will have had time to prepare. It was ruthless. It was brilliant. It was the action of someone who saw threats not as challenges to overcome through principle, but as problems to be solved through any means necessary. And it had saved 900 lives aboard the Enterprise, plus another 400 on the Sutherland. 32 minutes, Picard said. "You'll be going home soon." "Yes. And Doom will take with him memories of a universe that should not function, yet does. A democracy that should collapse under its own inefficiency, yet endures. A captain who should prioritize survival over principle, yet risks everything for even those who threaten him." Doom's gauntlet hand gestured at the dimensional dagger. Doom came to this universe believing Doom understood the fundamental nature of power and governance. Doom returns, less certain. Perhaps that uncertainty is the most valuable thing Doom discovered here. "Perhaps," Picard said carefully, "that's the beginning of wisdom, Lord Doom. Acknowledging what we don't know is the first step toward learning. Doom does not require lessons in philosophy from a Starfleet captain." But the words lacked their usual edge. "However, Doom will consider your Federation's example when Doom returns to Latveria. Not to adopt your systems, never that. But to understand why they work when they should fail. There may be principles worth adapting, though Doom will never admit this publicly. Picard smiled slightly. Your secret is safe with me. It had better be, Captain. Doom has given you defensive technology that will protect Federation space for months. Doom has eliminated an immediate Borg threat. And Doom has demonstrated that even omnipotent beings like Q respect power when it is properly wielded. In return, all Doom asks is that the record show Doom departed as Doom arrived, on Doom's own terms, beholden to no one. That seems like a fair exchange. Picard extended his hand. Safe journey home, Lord Doom. And, thank you. For the technology. For the defense. For showing us that strength and wisdom need not be enemies. Doom stared at the extended hand for a long moment. In his universe, such gestures were weaknesses to be exploited. But here, in this moment, with minutes remaining before Doom would tear through reality itself and return to a universe where might truly did make right. Victor Von Doom clasped Jean-Luc Picard's hand. Farewell, Captain. Rule your Federation well. And if Doom ever returns to this universe, though Doom has no intention of doing so, perhaps we shall meet again under less chaotic circumstances. I'll keep a bottle of Chateau Picard waiting, Picard replied. Something tells me even dictators appreciate a good vintage. Doom appreciates anything of genuine quality, Captain. It is one of Doom's few weaknesses. As Picard left the cargo bay, the dimensional dagger began its final power-up sequence. Reality itself was about to be cut open, and Victor Von Doom would step through the wound back to a universe he understood. But he would return changed in ways he had yet to fully comprehend. The dimensional dagger spun with increasing fury, its ring now moving at velocities that created visual distortions in the surrounding space. Energy cascaded through the cargo bay in waves that made instruments scream warnings and forced non-essential personnel to evacuate. Only Doom remained at the center of his creation, hands moving through holographic controls with the confidence of a conductor bringing a symphony to its crescendo. 5 minutes to dimensional breach, Doom announced through the ship-wide comm, Captain Picard, Doom recommends evacuating your engineering section. The power surge will be significant. On the bridge, Picard exchanged glances with Geordi, who had returned from engineering specifically to monitor the process remotely. The chief engineer's visor revealed energy patterns that shouldn't exist according to any Federation physics textbook. Captain, he's pulling power from our warp core at levels that should trigger automatic shutdown, Geordi reported. Except his Doombots have integrated so seamlessly with our systems that the safeties don't even recognize the drain as dangerous. It's like watching a master pianist play an instrument he's never seen before. Poetic, Mr. LaForge, but not particularly reassuring. Picard tapped his comm badge. All hands, brace for dimensional disruption in 5 minutes. Secure all. The ship lurched. Not from external attack, but from something far worse, internal destabilization. Alarms erupted across every console. Data's fingers became a blur of motion as he tried to make sense of readings that violated causality itself. Captain, something is wrong with the dimensional bridge. The energy signature is fluctuating beyond predicted parameters. I am detecting, Data's voice actually carried something approaching alarm, I am detecting a secondary breach opening. Not where Lord Doom intended. This breach is tearing through space approximately 400 meters off our starboard bow. On the view screen, reality cracked. It was the only way to describe it, space itself split open like glass struck by a hammer, and through the fissure, something emerged. It was a ship, if such a word could apply to something that seemed assembled from nightmares and geometric impossibilities. Its hull was black as the void between galaxies, yet somehow darker. Weapons bristled from every surface, not the elegant arrays of Starfleet vessels or even the brutal efficiency of Klingon design, but chaotic protrusions that looked grown rather than built. And across the hull, in symbols that made the universal translator fail to process them, was written what Data's linguistic subroutines identified as a warning in a language that predated most known civilizations. Captain, Data said quietly, "I am detecting chronometric radiation consistent with temporal displacement." That vessel is from the future. Approximately 400 years in the future. The ship's weapons locked onto the Enterprise. But before they could fire, another vessel emerged from the dimensional breach, this one recognizable in its horror. A Borg sphere, but wrong somehow. Its surface was covered not with the organized chaos of assimilated technology, but with organic growths that pulsed with sickly purple light. Where standard Borg vessels radiated cold efficiency, this one seemed almost alive, as if the collective itself had become infected with something worse than the sum of its parts. Multiple vessels emerging from the dimensional rift, Worf announced, his voice tight with barely controlled alarm. "I am detecting Romulan configurations, Klingon warships, even Federation signatures. But none of them match our databases. Captain, these ships are from timelines that should not exist." Picard gripped his command chair. "Mr. Data, Analysis. Captain, I believe Lord Doom's dimensional bridge is not merely opening a portal to his universe. It is creating a convergence point where multiple realities are bleeding through simultaneously. Ships from alternate timelines, from possible futures, from realities that diverged from ours at critical junctures. They are all being drawn to this location by the dimensional instability." In Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom's sensors had already reached the same conclusion. His calculations had been perfect, the mathematics was flawless, the energy curves precisely calibrated. But he had made one critical error: he had not accounted for the cumulative effect of his activities in this universe. Every modification he'd made to the Enterprise's systems, every technology he'd shared with the Borg, every energy signature he'd broadcasted had created ripples in the dimensional membrane. And now, as he tore open a doorway home, those ripples had converged into a catastrophic collapse. He wasn't just opening a door. He was shattering the wall itself. Doom, the word emerged from his vocabulary with something he had not experienced in years: uncertainty. Then, with iron will, Doom will correct this. But even as he worked to stabilize the dimensional breach, more ships poured through the rifts. A massive dreadnought bearing the insignia of a Terran empire, a mirror universe federation corrupted into fascism. A Dominion warship covered in technology that looked decades beyond what the Dominion possessed in this timeline. And most troubling of all, a vessel that sensors identified as Enterprise, but wrong in every detail, its hull scarred, its weapons clearly designed for warfare rather than exploration, its name changed to Entropy-D. From this dark reflection of Picard's ship, a hail came through on all channels. The face that appeared on the view screen made the entire bridge crew freeze. It was Picard. But this Picard had been broken and reforged into something terrible. Half his face was covered with Borg implants, but not in the organized pattern of a standard drone. These looked like they had been added voluntarily, eagerly, as enhancements rather than imprisonment. His remaining human eye glowed with fanatical intensity, and when he spoke, his voice carried the harmonics of the collective mixed with something uniquely, horrifyingly individual. "Captain Jean-Luc Picard," the alternate Picard said, his smile twisted with malevolence. "How delightfully naive you look. I remember being you, before Wolf 359, before I realized that Lacatus wasn't the enemy. The collective was enlightenment. And when I broke free, I didn't reject what they'd shown me. I perfected it. Welcome to your future, Captain. Or rather," his smile widened, "welcome to the future you were too weak to embrace." Real Picard stood frozen, staring at a reflection of his greatest fear made manifest. Not assimilation by force, but assimilation by choice. A version of himself who had looked into the Borg's hive mind and seen not horror but transcendence. Riker moved to his captain's side. "Jean-Luc, that's not you. That's not what you became." "No," Picard said quietly. "That's what I could have become. If I had been weaker. Or perhaps, stronger." The alternate Picard laughed. "Stronger. Yes. I led my collective to perfection. We don't assimilate by force anymore. We enlighten. We show lesser species the beauty of unity, and they beg to join us. And now, thanks to that magnificent fool Doom, we've found a way to cross dimensional barriers. Every reality will join the perfected collective. Including yours. All ships are powering weapons, Worf reported. Captain, we are facing 17 hostile vessels from various timelines and alternate realities. We cannot possibly. Doom will resolve this. The transmission cut through all channels with absolute authority. On every ship's view screen, Victor Von Doom appeared, his armored form standing before the now violently unstable dimensional dagger. This catastrophe is Doom's responsibility. Therefore, Doom will end it. All vessels will cease hostile actions immediately, or Doom will collapse the dimensional breaches with sufficient force to annihilate everything within 10,000 kilometers. That includes Doom's own vessel, Doom's own escape route, and Doom's own survival. Doom does not bluff. You have 30 seconds to comply. The alternate Picard's expression shifted to genuine surprise. You would sacrifice yourself? A dictator with everything to return to? I don't believe it. Doom does not require your belief. The armored figure's hands moved across controls with desperate precision. Doom requires your silence while Doom concentrates. Doom has made an error, the first significant miscalculation of Doom's life. And like all of Doom's mistakes, Doom will correct it personally, regardless of cost. Data's console erupted with new readings. Captain, he is overloading the dimensional bridge deliberately. He intends to create a cascading collapse that will seal all the rifts simultaneously. However, the energy release will be catastrophic, Picard finished. It will destroy everything in the blast radius. Including us. Correction, Captain. It will destroy everything that exists in normal spacetime. However, there may be a solution. Data's golden eyes met Picard's. If we could evacuate all vessels to a safe distance before the collapse, and if we could somehow ensure Lord Doom survives the initial detonation. He won't evacuate, Riker said. He's going to stay there and manually control the collapse to ensure it seals properly. It's the only way to guarantee success. Picard's mind raced through scenarios, each one ending in unacceptable losses. Doom dies, the dimensional rifts collapse, but they lose the only being who truly understood the technology. Or they attempt rescue, risk failure of the containment, and potentially doom not just this ship but multiple realities. Unless there was a third option. Captain, Counselor Troy's voice cut through the tactical discussions, I'm sensing something from Lord Doom. Beneath his certainty, beneath his confidence, he's afraid. Not of death, but of failure. Of being remembered as the man who destroyed multiple realities through arrogance. Picard stood. In that moment, he made a decision that violated every tactical protocol, every survival instinct, every logical calculation of risk versus reward. Mr. Worf, open a channel to Doom. Audio only. When the channel opened, Picard spoke with the quiet authority of command. Lord Doom, I'm ordering you to evacuate the cargo bay. We'll implement your containment solution remotely. Captain, you lack the expertise to. Then teach us. Picard's voice rose, passion breaking through diplomatic restraint. You've spent days telling us about the superiority of your methods, your genius, your absolute capability. Prove it now. Prove you can trust others to execute your vision. Prove that even the great Victor Von Doom recognizes when collaboration achieves more than solitary martyrdom. The channel was silent for exactly 6.7 seconds. You would risk your ship, your crew, your reality, to save Doom. I would risk them to save anyone, Picard replied. Even someone who spent the last day and a half insulting our principles and threatening our security. That's what the Federation means, Lord Doom. We don't abandon people. Not even dictators. Not even enemies. Not even when logic suggests we should. Another pause. Then, Doom's calculations suggest a 73% chance of failure if anyone but Doom executes the collapse sequence. Then give us a 74% chance. Share your knowledge. Trust someone other than yourself for once in your life. In Cargo Bay 3, Victor Von Doom stood absolutely still. Around him, the dimensional dagger screamed toward catastrophic overload. Ships from a dozen timelines prepared for battle. Reality itself was tearing at the seams. And a Starfleet captain was offering him the one thing Doom had never accepted in his entire existence. The possibility that he might be wrong. That his way might not be the only way. That asking for help was not weakness but wisdom. Very well, Captain. Doom's fingers flew across his controls. Doom is transmitting complete control protocols to your Mr. Data. The android's computational speed may be sufficient to execute the collapse sequence. However, understand this, if Data fails, if the collapse is improperly synchronized, the dimensional rifts will expand rather than seal. Your Federation, your timeline, every reality you've ever known will be consumed by the chaos between dimensions. Understood, Picard replied. But you'll be alive to see whether we succeed or fail. And if we fail, you can spend your last moments being properly insufferable about how right you were. Deal? Despite everything, despite the catastrophe unfolding, despite the risk to his pride and his principles, Victor Von Doom laughed. It was a genuine sound, unmarred by bitterness or superiority. Deal, Captain. Doom is evacuating the cargo bay now. Try not to destroy the universe while Doom transports to the bridge. The channel closed. Through the viewport, the dimensional rifts pulsed with increasing violence. The alternate timeline vessels held their fire, apparently recognizing that survival trumped conquest when reality itself was at stake. On the bridge, Data's hands became a blur of motion as Doom's data flooded his systems, terabytes of information describing dimensional physics, quantum field manipulation, and mathematical principles that made Data's positronic brain operate at 103% of theoretical capacity just to process. Captain, Data said, his voice absolutely level despite the computational strain, I have received Lord Doom's protocols. I understand what must be done. However, I must inform you that the probability of success is actually 68%, not 73%. Lord Doom was optimistic in his assessment. Or, Geordi suggested, he was giving us confidence. A transporter shimmer announced Doom's arrival on the bridge. His armored form materialized between the command chairs, and for the first time, the crew saw him standing still, not working, not threatening, not pontificating. Simply present. Simply waiting. Simply trusting. It was, perhaps, the most vulnerable Victor Von Doom had been in decades. Mr. Data, Picard ordered, execute the collapse sequence. All other ships, evacuate to minimum safe distance, 2,000 kilometers. Move now. The vessels scattered like schools of fish fleeing a predator. The Enterprise's impulse engines fired at full burn, racing away from the cascading dimensional breach while Data's hands danced across controls that were responding to commands in languages Starfleet had never developed. Initiating collapse in 5 seconds, Data announced. 4. 3. 2. 1. Collapse sequence activated. The dimensional dagger detonated. But it wasn't an explosion, not exactly. It was more like reality itself was inhaling, sucking everything back toward the epicenter. The dimensional rifts collapsed inward, dragging with them the ships that had emerged from alternate timelines. The Entropy-D, with its twisted alternate Picard, was pulled screaming back through the breach it had come from. The corrupted Borg sphere, the Terran Empire dreadnought, the impossible future vessels, all of them vanished as the dimensional membrane sealed itself. And then, silence. Space was normal again. The cargo bay was empty, the dimensional dagger consumed in its own collapse. And Victor Von Doom stood on the bridge of the Enterprise, watching his escape route vanish into nothingness. Data? Picard's voice was quiet. Status? All dimensional rifts sealed, Captain. Local spacetime has returned to stable configuration. The Enterprise sustained minor shield damage but is otherwise intact. Data turned to face Doom, his golden eyes somehow conveying what might have been sympathy. Lord Doom, I am sorry. Your dimensional bridge has been destroyed. The calculations required to rebuild it would take months, possibly years. You are stranded in our universe. Victor Von Doom stood motionless, processing this reality. Latveria was beyond his reach. His people would believe their leader dead or missing. His enemies would see opportunity. Everything he had built, everything he had protected, was now beyond his ability to defend. And it was because he had chosen to trust. Because he had accepted help. Because, for once in his life, he had not insisted on controlling everything himself. Well, Doom said finally, his voice carrying something that might have been dark humor, it appears Doom's lesson in trusting others has come with a rather significant price. Captain Picard, it seems Doom will be remaining in your universe for the foreseeable future. Doom trusts this does not violate any Federation regulations regarding unwanted house guests. Despite everything, despite the near catastrophe and the exhaustion and the knowledge that they just prevented the collapse of multiple realities, Picard smiled. I think, Lord Doom, we can find room for one more. Welcome to the Federation. It's going to be an interesting partnership. Doom's masked face turned toward the viewscreen, staring at stars that were simultaneously familiar and utterly alien. Somewhere in another universe, Latveria endured without him. Somewhere, his people wondered what had become of their sovereign. But here, in this universe of impossible democracies and idealistic explorers, Victor Von Doom faced a new challenge, learning to be something other than a dictator. Learning to be, perhaps, a person. Interesting, Doom echoed quietly. Yes, Captain. Doom suspects that is precisely the word for what comes next. 3 weeks had passed since the dimensional collapse. 3 weeks of what Victor Von Doom could only describe as an extended exercise in restraint, diplomacy, and tolerance for inefficiency that would have been unthinkable in Latveria. The Enterprise had returned to Earth, where Starfleet Command, the Federation Council, and approximately 17 different oversight committees had demanded comprehensive briefings on the Doom incident. Doom had endured it all with barely concealed impatience. Now he stood in a diplomatic suite at Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco, staring out at a sunset that painted the Golden Gate Bridge in shades of amber and rose. The view was objectively beautiful, Doom's aesthetic analysis confirmed it. Yet it felt wrong somehow, lacking the particular quality of light that filtered through Latveria's mountain passes, the specific geometry of shadows that fell across Castle Doom's towers. A chime at the door interrupted his brooding. Enter, he commanded, then remembered this was not his castle and softened his tone fractionally. Come in. Captain Picard entered, carrying a bottle and 2 glasses. I thought you might appreciate some company. And perhaps a drink. I find that evenings are easier when one isn't facing them alone. Doom does not require company, Captain. But Doom made no move to dismiss him, which Picard correctly interpreted as permission to stay. Picard poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. Chateau Picard, 2347. Not my family's finest vintage, but respectable nonetheless. He handed 1 glass to Doom, who accepted it with visible hesitation. The mask unseals, I presume. For necessity. Doom does not eat or drink publicly as a matter of principle. But even as he spoke, the lower portion of the mask unsealed with a soft hiss, revealing a face that was simultaneously handsome and terrible, scarred on the left side, but not disfigured as many had speculated. The scars were thin, precise, surgical in their appearance. Self-inflicted, Picard realized. A reminder of some failure or perceived imperfection that Doom refused to forget. They drank in silence for a moment. The wine was excellent, Doom's educated palate confirmed it immediately. A quality vintage, Captain. Your family's viticulture skills are commendable. Thank you. My brother maintains the vineyard now. Picard settled into a chair, gesturing for Doom to sit as well. The armored figure remained standing for exactly 7 seconds before apparently deciding that tactical posturing was pointless at this juncture. He sat, the motion somehow maintaining dignity despite the obvious design limitations of armor meant for combat rather than comfort. "The Federation Council has reached a decision regarding your status," Picard said quietly. Doom's hand tightened fractionally on his glass. "Doom assumes they have determined that a dictator from another universe represents an unacceptable security risk and should be confined, studied, or expelled from Federation space." "Actually, no." Picard smiled slightly. "They've granted you provisional refugee status with full rights and protections under Federation law. You're free to travel, to work, to establish residence anywhere within Federation space." "Actually, no." Picard smiled slightly. "They've granted you provisional refugee status with full rights and protections under Federation law. You're free to travel, to work, to establish residence anywhere within Federation space. However," and here his tone became more serious, "there are conditions. Naturally. Bureaucracies always impose conditions." Doom's scarred mouth twisted into something between a smile and a sneer. "What does the Federation demand in exchange for tolerating Doom's presence?" "First, you agree to operate under Federation law while in our space. No conquering worlds, no unauthorized dimensional experiments, no Doombots establishing surveillance networks in our infrastructure." That last part is oddly specific. That's because Data discovered 17 of your Doombots still integrated into various systems throughout the ship. Monitoring, analyzing, reporting back to you. Picard's expression remained neutral. "We removed them, but I suspect you already have contingency surveillance established elsewhere." Doom said nothing, which was answer enough. "Second," Picard continued, "you agree to share your knowledge. Not everything, we're not demanding you surrender your technological advantages. But you will consult with Federation scientists, help us improve our defenses against threats like the Borg, teach us principles that might save lives in future encounters. In exchange, the Federation will provide you with resources, laboratory facilities, and the freedom to continue your research." Doom is to become a consultant. The disdain in his voice was palpable. "A mere advisor to your inferior scientists. You're to become a contributor to something larger than yourself," Picard corrected gently. "I know that concept is foreign to you, Lord Doom. In your universe, you stood alone at the apex of power. Here, we're asking you to stand alongside others. Not above them, not below them. Alongside." Doom was silent for a long moment, swirling the wine in his glass, watching the light catch and refract through the amber liquid. "And if Doom refuses these conditions? Then you're free to leave Federation space. We won't imprison you or force compliance. You'll simply be on your own, no resources, no support, no access to the infrastructure you'd need to eventually build another dimensional bridge home." Picard leaned forward. "But I don't think you'll refuse, Lord Doom. Because I think you've realized something in these past 3 weeks. Something that terrifies you more than the Borg, more than being stranded, more than any external threat." "And what?" Doom asked dangerously, "has Doom allegedly realized?" "That you might have been wrong." Picard's voice was quiet but unflinching. "Not about everything, your genius is undeniable, your accomplishments speak for themselves. But wrong about the fundamental nature of power and governance. You've seen our democracy function despite its inefficiencies. You've witnessed our principles succeed where your calculations suggested they should fail. You've experienced trust and cooperation achieving what individual brilliance alone could not. And it's challenged everything you built your rule upon." Doom's scarred face remained impassive, but his eyes, those terrible, intelligent eyes, betrayed something that might have been vulnerability. "Captain Picard, Doom has ruled Latveria for 2 decades. Doom has made decisions that cost lives to save nations. Doom has sacrificed principles for survival and survived because Doom never doubted. Never questioned. Never hesitated. And now you do question," Picard said softly. "Now you hesitate. Now you wonder if the absolute certainty that made you powerful also made you blind. Yes. The word emerged as barely more than a whisper. Then, with forced strength, yes. Doom questions. For the first time in years, Doom does not know with absolute certainty that Doom's way is correct. And it is intolerable. Doom is Victor Von Doom, master of sciences, conqueror of dimensions, sovereign ruler whose word is law. Doubt is weakness. Uncertainty is death. Or, Picard suggested, uncertainty is growth. Doubt is the recognition that wisdom comes from learning, not from assuming you already know everything. He refilled both their glasses. Lord Doom, you asked me once how the Federation survives despite its inefficiencies. The answer is that we don't survive despite our principles, we survive because of them. Our willingness to question ourselves, to admit mistakes, to learn from others, that's not weakness. That's adaptation. That's evolution. Doom stared into his wine as if it held answers to questions he'd never allowed himself to ask. If Doom admits error, if Doom accepts that Doom's methods were flawed, then what was the purpose of everything Doom has done? What justifies the sacrifices Doom demanded, the lines Doom crossed, the absolutism Doom imposed? The fact that you did the best you could with the understanding you had at the time, Picard replied. Doom, you're not the first leader to realize that your methods, however necessary they seemed, came with costs you didn't fully appreciate. The question isn't whether you were perfect, no one is. The question is whether you're willing to do better now that you know better. Through the window, the sun completed its descent, leaving San Francisco bathed in twilight. Somewhere in the city below, millions of beings from hundreds of worlds went about their lives, working, loving, arguing, cooperating in the vast, messy, imperfect experiment called the United Federation of Planets. And in that diplomatic suite, Victor Von Doom faced the most difficult decision of his life, whether to cling to the certainty that had defined him, or embrace the uncertainty that terrified him. Doom will accept your conditions, he said finally. Doom will contribute to your Federation's scientific endeavors. Doom will share knowledge and collaborate with your inferior, he paused, corrected himself with visible effort, with your scientists. But understand this, Captain, Doom does not surrender Doom's identity. Doom remains Victor Von Doom. Doom does not apologize for what Doom was, nor does Doom promise to become what you wish Doom to be. I don't want you to become anyone other than yourself, Picard said. I just want you to be open to the possibility that yourself might include dimensions you haven't explored yet. Facets of Victor Von Doom that absolute power never allowed to develop. Doom's mask sealed itself, the lower portion sliding back into place with mechanical precision. When he spoke again, his voice carried its usual imperious tone, but beneath it, something had shifted. Doom will work with your Federation scientists. Doom will contribute to your defensive technologies. And perhaps, the admission came with visible reluctance, perhaps Doom will learn something in the process. But do not expect Doom to embrace democracy, Captain. Do not expect Doom to suddenly believe that committee decisions and consensus building represent optimal governance. I don't, Picard said with a slight smile. I just expect you to understand why others believe it. That's enough. 2 months later, Victor Von Doom stood in a Federation research facility orbiting Vulcan, surrounded by scientists from a dozen species, all working on a problem that would have been impossible to solve alone. The challenge: creating adaptive shield technology that could resist Borg assimilation attempts while maintaining compatibility with Federation power systems. Doom's initial solution had been elegant and absolutely unworkable. It required energy outputs that would drain a starship's entire power grid in 17 seconds. But then a Balian engineer named Mote had suggested a modification that distributed the load across multiple redundant systems. And a human scientist named Dr. Leah Brahms had proposed using rotating frequency algorithms instead of Doom's fixed spectrum approach. Doom had dismissed both suggestions initially. Then he had analyzed them. Then he had integrated them into his design. Then he had been forced to admit, only to himself, never aloud, that the collaborative solution was objectively superior to his individual effort. It was infuriating. It was humbling. It was effective. Lord Doom, Dr. Brahms called from across the laboratory, "The prototype is ready for testing. Would you like to do the honors?" Doom approached the test chamber, where a miniaturized shield emitter sat waiting. Around him, the research team watched with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. They had worked with Doom for weeks now, learning to navigate his arrogance, his demands for perfection, his absolute refusal to tolerate imprecision. But they had also witnessed his genius, his willingness to reconsider when presented with superior data, his capacity for growth. He activated the emitter. Energy cascaded across the test target in patterns that reflected principles from three different scientific traditions: Doom's dimensional physics, Federation energy distribution systems, and Vulcan computational optimization algorithms. The shield held stable, adapted to simulated Borg nanoprobe attacks, and maintained integrity for 4.7 minutes before controlled shutdown. 40 times longer than any previous Federation shield had lasted against similar attacks. The laboratory erupted in applause. Doom stood motionless, processing emotions he had not permitted himself to feel in decades. Pride, yes, that was familiar. But also something else. Something that felt uncomfortably like belonging. "Well done, everyone," Dr. Brahms said warmly. "This represents a genuine breakthrough. Lord Doom, your dimensional resonance calculations were the foundation that made everything else possible." Doom merely provided the theoretical framework, he replied, the words coming with surprising ease. The practical implementation required expertise Doom did not possess. The final solution is collaborative. The word still tasted strange, but no longer bitter. That night, back in his assigned quarters on the station, Doom stood before a holographic display showing Latveria, not his Latveria, but one carefully reconstructed from historical records and parallels in this universe. The castle was wrong, the borders slightly different, but the essence remained. His people. His responsibility. His absence. Computer, compile report for Starfleet Command. Subject, Adaptive Shield Technology Project, status update and recommendations for fleet-wide implementation. As the computer processed his dictation, Doom found himself adding something unplanned. Personal notation: Doom acknowledges that collaborative research methods, while inefficient in initial stages, produce more robust and innovative solutions than individual effort alone. Doom recommends continued integration of interdisciplinary teams for future projects. This conclusion does not represent a fundamental change in Doom's governing philosophy, merely an acknowledgement that scientific advancement benefits from diverse perspectives. End notation. He paused, then added quietly, "Computer, append additional personal message." Recipient, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, USS Enterprise. Ready for message. Captain. Doom has been conducting research as agreed. Progress is acceptable. More significantly, Doom has been conducting what you might term personal research, observing your Federation, analyzing its principles in practice rather than theory. Doom remains unconvinced that democracy represents optimal governance. However, Doom concedes that your Federation has achieved something Doom did not believe possible. Genuine cooperation among diverse species, each contributing their strengths without absolute authority enforcing unity. Doom paused, choosing his next words carefully. When Doom eventually returns to Latveria, and Doom will return, Captain, regardless of the years or decades required, Doom will not become a democrat. Doom will not surrender the authority necessary to protect Latveria from threats your Federation has never faced. But Doom will consider. Doom will evaluate whether elements of your approach might strengthen rather than weaken Doom's rule. Whether the advisory council Doom promised to establish might be more than mere window dressing. Whether Doom's genius, combined with genuine input from others, might achieve what Doom alone could not. Another pause. Then, with difficulty, you suggested that uncertainty represents growth. Doom finds this concept deeply uncomfortable. But Doom cannot deny the evidence. Collaboration produced superior shields. Trust prevented dimensional catastrophe. Accepting help preserved Doom's life and potentially saved multiple realities. These are facts. And Doom does not ignore facts simply because they challenge Doom's assumptions. The message continued, therefore, Doom informs you that Doom has decided to remain with the Federation for the foreseeable future. Not as a prisoner or refugee, but as a contributor. Doom will continue research. Doom will share knowledge. Doom will learn, though Doom reserves the right to remain insufferably superior about it. And when Doom finally constructs a stable dimensional bridge home, Doom will carry with him insights that may transform Latveria into something greater than it was. Something that combines Doom's strength with wisdom gained from the most unlikely source, a democracy that should not function, yet does. End message, the computer inquired. Not yet. Doom's voice softened fractionally. Final notation, thank you, Captain Picard. For the wine. For the conversation. For the patience to treat Doom as a person rather than merely a threat. Your Federation is fortunate to have leaders who understand that even dictators can learn. Even tyrants can grow. Even Victor von Doom can admit, if only privately, that he was not always right. Now end message. Transmit when the Enterprise is next in communication range. The hologram of Latveria faded, replaced by the stark walls of his quarters. But in his mind's eye, Victor von Doom saw something he had never envisioned before, a future where his rule was not absolute, but absolute excellence. Where his authority was not unchallenged, but challenged in ways that made it stronger. Where Latveria thrived not because Doom decided everything, but because Doom had learned when to decide and when to listen. It would take years to return home. Perhaps decades to build a dimensional bridge stable enough to cross without catastrophic risk. But Doom had time. And for the first time in his life, Victor von Doom understood that time spent learning was not time wasted. Outside his window, Vulcan's forge turned slowly beneath twin stars, its ancient civilization a testament to what logic and discipline could achieve. Elsewhere in the Federation, thousands of worlds pursued their own paths to prosperity, united by principles rather than force. And in his quarters, the man who had conquered dimensions began the far more difficult work of conquering his own certainty. The work would never be complete, Doom would always be Doom, would always believe in the superiority of his methods, would always chafe against constraints and committees. But he would also remember this moment, this night, when Victor von Doom admitted something he had never permitted himself before. That he might learn more from this universe than it could ever learn from him. And that, perhaps, was the beginning of wisdom. Far away, aboard the Enterprise as it patrolled the Romulan neutral zone, Captain Picard received Doom's message. He read it twice, then poured himself a glass of Earl Grey tea and settled into his ready-room chair with a rare, genuine smile. Computer, reply to Lord Doom. Message begins, your insights are appreciated and your growth is noted. The Federation looks forward to continued collaboration. And Lord Doom, Picard paused, considering his words, we don't expect you to stop being who you are. We simply hope that who you are continues to evolve. That's all any of us can do, become better versions of ourselves while retaining what made us valuable in the first place. Message continues, should you require assistance with dimensional bridge calculations, the Enterprise stands ready. But I suspect you'll take your time with this project. After all, wisdom can't be rushed, and you have much to learn before returning home, just as Latveria will have much to learn from what you've become. Safe journeys, Lord Doom. Live long and prosper. End message. The stars streamed past in their endless dance, indifferent to the dramas of dictators and democracies, of certainty and doubt, of power and wisdom. But aboard ships scattered across the galaxy, beings from countless worlds continued the work of building something greater than any single vision could achieve. And somewhere in a research station orbiting Vulcan, Victor von Doom worked through the night on equations that might, one day, bring him home, transformed by a universe that had treated him not as the enemy he expected to be, but as the ally he never imagined he could become. Victor Von Doom remained in the Federation universe for 7 years. 7 years of collaboration, contribution, and careful evolution. He never stopped being Doom, never surrendered his arrogance, never fully embraced democratic principles, never stopped believing that his genius made him exceptional. But he learned. He adapted. He grew in ways that absolute power had never permitted. When he finally completed his dimensional bridge, stabilized by principles learned from Federation scientists, refined through collaboration with minds he once would have dismissed as inferior, Victor Von Doom stood ready to return home. But the man who stepped through that portal was not quite the same dictator who had arrived. He carried with him innovations that would revolutionize Latveria. Advisory councils that possessed genuine authority to challenge his decisions. Systems of accountability that preserved his absolute power while tempering it with wisdom. And most importantly, he carried the understanding that strength and wisdom were not opposites, they were partners in governance that transcended simple dictatorship or democracy. Latveria would never become a democracy. But under Doom's evolved rule, it would become something unprecedented, a nation where absolute authority coexisted with genuine input, where one man's genius was amplified rather than constrained by the insights of others. The Federation never saw Victor Von Doom again. But they remembered him, not as the threat he could have been, but as proof that even the most certain minds could learn, even the most absolute rulers could grow, even the most incompatible philosophies could find common ground. And on quiet nights, when Captain Picard looked at the stars and contemplated the infinite diversity of the universe, he sometimes wondered what Latveria had become under the rule of a dictator who had learned that power without wisdom was merely force, but power with wisdom was something approaching justice. Somewhere across dimensional barriers, in a universe where magic and science coexisted, Victor Von Doom sat upon his throne and contemplated the same question, no longer certain he had all the answers, but certain that the questions themselves were worth asking. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson the Federation had taught him. That doubt was not weakness, that learning was not surrender, and that even Doom, especially Doom, could become something greater than what he was. The encounter had changed both universe and man. And in the end, wasn't that what the best Star Trek stories always accomplished? Live long and prosper. More stories await.